Interesting, he thought, and this is genuinely cool. This is what matches a young master of my standing. He pursed his lips and impatiently injected a wisp of chi, and a new name appeared immediately in the contact list. Yu Yakon. Then the azure dragon soared into the sky, howling through the air with rolls of thunder behind it, and broke through the void realm and vanished. It struck a ripple in the void that kept undulating and unfolded into a screen. He could not wait to show off in front of Yu Yakon. Last time, because Yu Yakon had invested in the Manhwa Foundation, the disaster victims held him in high regard while Seok Ilmyung became the target of a mob beating. Not only that, Yu Yakon had ended up together with his beloved Miss Ming because of it, and if he did not avenge that, he swore he would not be a man. And he had to move quickly. The Yu family's power does not sit below the Seok family's, so if he could afford a blazing sun, then Yu Yakon definitely could too. He had to be one step ahead and stamp on the other man's face first. Then an accident happened. The azure dragon broke through the void realm and did not travel far at all. Instead, it surfaced in the crowd on the other side of the square, bearing fangs and claws, and tore open a projection there. Yu Yakon's mouth twitched. He had been startled badly by an azure dragon pouncing in front of him out of nowhere. His face went a little pale. He could not stop himself from swearing and demanding to know what Seok thought he was sending a message about. Seok Ilmyung had nothing to say. He had not expected Yu Yakon to be standing at the same event, and he had not expected him to be standing there with Meng Chuol either. His face darkened slightly, and he snorted coldly and said that this young master was bored, and asked whether he was not permitted to be. "You are sick," Yu Yakon said. He spat, walked up to Manager Mock, and said that they wanted the blazing sun grade as well, one white tiger and one vermilion bird. There were stars in Meng Chuol's eyes as he said it. That vermilion bird was very obviously being bought for her. Yu Yakon carried the box, holding the universal communication talisman in one hand and Meng Chuol's soft hand in the other. He swaggered down the street, feeling the envy and the attention and the amazement coming off every gaze around him, and he held his back very straight while he did it. It felt as though his entire life had arrived at its peak in that moment. That feeling did not last very long at all. When he got back to the Yu clan estate, he found his grandfather, the current head of the Yu family, waiting for him. "You are back," Yu Xin said, turning slowly, his eyes cloudy and unreadable. Yu Yakon greeted his grandfather, and the word came out nervous. "Why exactly are you standing here waiting for me?" His grandfather had run this enormous family for over 100 years, and ordinarily a single look from the man was enough to silence the entire younger generation with fear and awe. Standing out here waiting for somebody was another matter entirely. "Waiting for you, of course," Yu Xin said, and his eyes were full of kindness. "Waiting for me," Yu Yakon repeated, overwhelmed by unexpected favor. His heart, which was already floating somewhere, climbed higher still. Donating to the Manhwa Foundation had significantly raised his standing in the family, and now it appeared to have raised it further still. "Is that the universal azure dragon communication talisman?" Yu Xin said, his eyes fixed on the box. "I heard there is only one in the entire Chungin archipelago at the moment." Yu Yakon nodded proudly and said it was entirely thanks to grandfather's teachings that his grandson had been gifted such a talisman. He was proud, and he did not forget to flatter the old man while he was at it. "Rubbish," Yu Xin said suddenly and very loudly. Yu Yakon was startled and began to ask what he meant. "Was this given to you?" his grandfather said, rolling his eyes. "Do you honestly imagine your own grandfather has gone senile?" Manager Mock stated clearly that it was given to my Yu family. Yu Yakon had not expected the old man to know the details that precisely without having been anywhere near the branch. His face went red and then white and then red again. "That was also because I insisted on donating to the Manhwa Foundation," he said. "So what if you donated any of it?" Yu Xin huffed. "Was the money you donated earned by you in the first place?" "Over the years," he said, "this family holds hundreds of people. Their food and their clothing and their expenses. Was that not all managed by your grandfather, one spirit stone at a time? Without me, could you have donated a single one of those spirit stones? I have worked very hard for a great many years now. Can I not enjoy myself a little at this age?" At that, Yu Yakon was instantly and completely out of words. "Hand the thing over," Yu Xin said, entirely direct about it. Yu Yakon stroked the box reluctantly and then handed it across with both hands, respectful and entirely helpless about it. Yu Xin blew a breath onto his palms, took it in both hands, and could not keep the smile down. "All right," he said, waving the boy off. "Go on, because there is nothing else here for you." Yu Yakon pouted openly at the whole business. So the old man had been standing there purely to intercept it. He did not dare say another word, and could only bow and leave. The Yu family is an essential great family with hundreds of direct descendants, and counting relatives and servants and maids, the total runs to several thousand. They occupy Yuha Island, which holds the strongest spiritual vein in the entire Cheongan archipelago. Yu Xin carried the box back toward his palace at the core of the island, unable to put it down for a moment. Before he could even unseal it, he saw a figure standing outside his door with its hands behind its back. That was the old ancestor of the entire Yu family. "Greetings, old ancestor," Yu Xin said, hurrying forward to bow. Yu In made a small sound of acknowledgement at the greeting. His skin was as tender as a baby's, his hair was white above a youthful face, and his breathing ran steady and long. He entered the nascent soul venerable realm years ago, and was surely stronger than that by now. "When did the old ancestor leave seclusion?" Yu Xin asked respectfully. "Why did you not notify any of us about it?" "Not long ago at all," Yuan said calmly. "I simply wanted to come out for some fresh air." "You have done well enough here. Today's Yu family stands better than it did back then." "The old ancestor overpraises me entirely," Yu Xin said quickly. Then Yuan's gaze fell on the treasure box in his hands and his eyes narrowed slightly. "What exactly is that thing?" he said. "It is only a communication talisman," Yu Xin said. "Nonsense," Yuan said, frowning at the box. "Since when did any communication talisman look like that?" "I would not dare deceive the old ancestor," Yu Xin said. "This is a new communication talisman released by the Manhwa Merchant Guild." Seeing the displeasure on the old man's face, he quickly told him everything he knew about the whole business. After hearing it out, a strange look arrived in Yuan's eyes. "Is that genuinely so?" he said. "Let me have a look at it." Yu Xin's heart skipped a beat, and he hesitated very slightly. "You Junior," Yuan said, watching him. "Do you imagine your old ancestor would steal your things?" Yu Xin decided that made sense, and handed the box over immediately. Yu In unsealed it and took out the Azure Dragon communication talisman. It was purple gold throughout, with a great many black gold seal characters cut across the surface. Mysterious and noble at once. An azure dragon perched on the back of it, lifelike, its eyes set with crimson crystal. "Such rare materials used to make a communication talisman," Yuan said, drawing a breath. "The Manhwa Merchant Guild is genuinely wealthy and genuinely powerful." With eyesight like his, he could see all of it plainly. Whether it was the metal in the body or the crystal in the dragon's eyes, every part was an extremely rare treasure. Even if he obtained a piece of it himself, he would have to store it carefully, since material like that might matter enormously later. He grew more interested by the moment and could not wait to input a wisp of spiritual energy. The communication talisman activated in his hand. Thunderclouds surged overhead as though the world itself were changing, and a massive azure dragon, thick as a barrel, emerged slowly out of them. Its eyes glowed red as it roared at the heavens, circled Yu Xin several times, and then hovered quietly behind him, moving occasionally its breathing light, looking exactly like the real animal. This azure dragon ran more than 10 times larger than the Blazing Sun version. At first glance, it looked like a manifestation of heaven and earth, and its divine might was terrifying. Yuan moved his hand seals and formed a water mirror with his magic so he could look at himself. His eyebrows rose without asking him for permission. He looked left, and then he looked right, and his eyes held a joy he could not suppress at all. Cool, he thought, and genuinely cool at that. A man, no matter his age and no matter how many years he has lived, always keeps a playful side somewhere inside him. It usually stays buried under a more mature soul and rarely gets out. At that moment, Yuan felt as though he had found his younger self standing in the room. Watching the situation develop, Yu Xin immediately clapped and offered praise. "The old ancestor's aura is genuinely like a towering mountain or a vast ocean," he said, "and far beyond anything the rest of us reach." "Really?" Yu Xin told him. Yuan laughed heartily at that, and then remembered something. "You said there is only one of these in the entire Cheonan archipelago," he said. "Exactly that," Yu Xin told him. "Good," Yuan said in return. He pursed his lips and, with a thought, injected a wisp of his own aura into the talisman. The azure dragon let out a roar and soared away, because with a thing this good in his hands, he naturally wanted to share it with his old friend immediately. John Island is the second largest island in the Cheonan archipelago, and the home of the only other nascent soul great family, the Seok family. At that moment, inside the Seok family forbidden land, an elderly man with his hair hanging loose sat cross-legged in cultivation. Shimmering light flickered across his body, his presence ran as deep as an ocean, and the aura coming off him was fearsome and powerful. Then a massive phantom of an azure dragon arrived through the air and appeared in front of him without any warning at all. It opened its bloody maw at him. The old man opened his eyes, saw the scene, and his pupils shrank instantly to the size of pinpricks as he cried out that his life was over. Inside the Forbidden Land, Seok Biom, the old ancestor of the Seok family, stared wide-eyed at the azure dragon for a long moment before sensing that something was wrong. It possessed both spirit and form, and he did not feel the pressure or the dangerous aura of a genuine divine beast anywhere in it. The thing appeared to be nothing but an empty shell. What exactly was going on here? Then a burst of unrestrained, sneering laughter came out of the azure dragon. "Old Ghost Soak," the voice said, "it has only been a few decades since we last met. How did your courage shrink to the size of a mosquito?" "Old dog you," Seok Biom said out loud. His eyebrows shot straight up because he knew that voice better than almost any other. It belonged to the Yu family old ancestor, Yu-in, who had been his rival for an entire lifetime. "Is this whole thing your doing?" he demanded. "My life is over," Yu-in said. "I am so frightened," and then laughed. The azure dragon bared its claws and fangs and opened a screen showing Yu-in's divine thought form. The man was mimicking Seokbeom's own earlier reaction, pulling a terrified face before laughing mercilessly at it. Seokbeom's face went ashen and he ground his teeth in extreme shame and anger. "Old dog Yu," he said. "What kind of trick are you playing?" Yu-in stayed calm and composed, with a faint smile on him. "What do you mean by playing tricks?" he said. "I simply have not seen you in a long time and missed you a bit, so I am using a communication talisman to chat." "Communication talisman," Seokbeom said, frowning, and then caught what had been said. "Rubbish and nonsense. Where in this world is there a communication talisman like that?" Yu-in's lips curled up into an openly mocking smile. "You complete old fossil," he said. "How long has it been since you looked at the world? This is the latest type, produced jointly by the Nanya Merchant Guild in the Northern Dark Holy Land. Forget the whole thing. You would not understand even if I explained it, because you are too stupid. You are the stupid one here," Seokbeom said, "and your whole family is stupid." Then the corner of his mouth twitched. "Old dog you," he said. "You are hundreds of years old and you behave like a brat. It is a communication talisman. Is that genuinely worth showing off in front of me?" "Hey now," Yu-in cried out strangely. "I am bullying you because you do not have one. Are you genuinely angry about it?" "You are genuinely sick," Seokbeom said. He spat, flicked his sleeve and cut the communication off. "It is cut," Yu-in said, looking at the screen vanishing and the azure dragon returning to hover behind him. "Reconnect the call at once." He initiated the call again with a smirk on his face. The azure dragon burst through the void and reappeared in front of Seokbeom in a very short span of time. "Will you ever stop doing this?" Seokbeom demanded. "Old ghost Seok," Yu-in said, "I do not mean anything by it. I simply want you to help me judge whether my dragon is big or not." Veins came up all over Seokbeom's forehead. He cut the communication again, and to prevent any further harassment, he immediately formed a hand seal and set a restriction around himself. Once everything was finished, he closed his eyes and intended to keep cultivating. For some reason, he could not calm his mind at all. The moment his eyes shut, it was as though he could see an enormous azure dragon flaunting its power in front of him. He had to admit at least one thing to himself. That old dog was disgusting, and the azure dragon itself was genuinely handsome. Is the thing not simply a communication talisman? If the Yu family can buy one, can my Seok family not buy one? Thinking that, he condensed a strand of divine thought and sent it out of the Forbidden Land. A moment later, the current head of the Seok family, Seokjin, led the younger generation to the Forbidden Land, and all of them knelt in unison to welcome the old ancestor out of seclusion. "Greetings to you, old ancestor," all of them said. "I heard the Nanya Merchant Guild has released a new communication talisman," Seokbeom said, waving a hand and looking down at them. "A communication talisman." Seokjin was stunned and instinctively looked at the man standing beside him, since he spent his days on clan affairs and paid no attention to anything like this. "There is such a thing," the Seok family grand elder whispered into the family head's ear. "It was released only today." Reporting to the old ancestor, Seokjin said quickly, "There is." Inside his own head, he was thoroughly and completely puzzled. The old ancestor had been in seclusion for many years, so how did he know more about this than the family head did? And why had he ended his seclusion and summoned everybody over it? "Send somebody to buy one immediately," Seokbeom said, waving. "And remember that it has to be the best one available." Seokjin looked troubled and told the old ancestor that at this hour the Nanya branch had most likely already closed. Seokbeom's eyebrows came down at once, and an extremely majestic pressure descended over all of them in an instant. The members of the Seok family fell silent as though somebody had chilled them to the bone. The old ancestor was very plainly displeased. Meanwhile, out in the crowd, Seok Ilmyung, who had been kneeling along with everybody else, felt his whole body tremble. A communication talisman. He had one of them already. He did not know why the old ancestor had suddenly taken an interest in this. Right now, with the old ancestor on the edge of genuine anger, if he could step forward and satisfy that need, would it not count as an enormous achievement? "I am genuinely going to make it big here." His heart pounded wildly, his lips went dry and his eyes went bloodshot as he plucked up the courage to raise his head and shout for the old ancestor. "Why are you shouting that loudly?" Seokbeom said, startled. "I have one," Seok Ilmyung said, and when Seokbeom demanded to know what exactly he had, he answered that it was a communication talisman. Seokbeom's eyes lit up at that, and he told the boy to bring it here immediately. Seok Ilmyung immediately presented the Blazing Sun Azure Dragon he had bought at such a high price that same day, holding it out in both hands. Seokbeom took it and examined it repeatedly. and the longer he looked, the more he liked it. Truly extraordinary work, he said aloud. Old thing, showing off to me, as though I would not have one of my own. With that, he ignored Seokjin and the rest entirely and returned to his secluded stone chamber. He took the talisman out, input a strand of Yuen's aura, and began the communication. Soon the azure dragon phantom soared through the air, and a screen unfolded slowly in front of him, and Yuen's figure appeared on it. Seokbyum genuinely could not wait for it. He put his hands on his hips and laughed arrogantly. Old dog you, he said, so how about it now? It is only a communication talisman, and who does not have one? Are you still acting tough over there? How exactly does my dragon compare with yours? On the other side of it, Yuen did not speak. His gaze went strange, and then a thick sense of playfulness surfaced somewhere deep in his eyes. The smile on Seokbyum's face faded because he realized something was wrong. Above the screen in front of him, two dragons stood facing each other. One was thick and massive and soared through the night heavens with the sun and the moon and the stars around it, and thunder rolling without stopping. The other was thin and short and looked exactly like a loach standing in front of that enormous azure dragon. Yuen clutched his stomach and laughed hard enough that tears and worse were very nearly coming out of him. This is supposed to be your dragon, he said. Are you trying to kill me with laughter, old ghost Sok? As he laughed, that massive azure dragon made a matching movement and roared at the sky, while the loach stayed where it was, motionless and silent exactly like Seokbyum, quietly watching a giant dragon laugh until it could not breathe. Seokbyum's mouth twitched for a long while and the corner of his eye throbbed wildly. He raised a hand and shattered the chat screen with a slap, and then walked out of the forbidden land with a gloomy face. Outside it, the Seok family members were still waiting respectfully. Ilmyung, Seokjin said, looking at him with a face full of gratification, you did very well this time. Although I was the one who instructed you to buy the communication talisman, he said, you completed the task well. From now on, the stipends for you and your parents inside the clan are both doubled. If you have any other requests, feel free to mention them. You instructed me to go and buy it. Seok Ilmyung was stunned and then caught up fast and ground his teeth internally. This old thing is genuinely trying to steal the credit. He was not a stupid man though. He knew his own words carried very little weight and that opposing the family head would bring him nothing good. He forced a smile and nodded and said it was all thanks to the man's good teaching. Seokjin's eyes narrowed slightly, and seeing how sensible the boy was, a look of satisfaction arrived on his face. Good, he said. You are neither arrogant nor rash about it. You will surely achieve great things in the future, and I have high hopes for you. Thank you for the praise, family head, Sok Ilmyung said, smiling and feeling extremely excited inside. This time he was genuinely going to take off at last. Then Seokbyum walked out expressionless, his whole aura cold and intimidating, holding the blazing sun azure dragon in his hand. Whose is this thing? He said, scanning all of them. Seokjin read his expression and instantly sensed something was wrong, and the smile vanished off his face on the spot. Seok Ilmyung, he snapped coldly. The old ancestor is asking a question. Have you gone completely mute? Seok Ilmyung made a strangled noise of complete and total incomprehension. He stared at Seokbyum and swallowed hard and asked the old ancestor what was wrong. What exactly is wrong? Seokbyum said. With a cold face, he smashed the communication talisman against the boy, fuming with rage, and told him he had made him lose every scrap of face he owned. Seok Ilmyung looked utterly bewildered and completely failed to understand any of it. Why is your dragon so much smaller than everybody else's? Seokbyum said angrily. Small, Seok Ilmyung said, his eyebrows shooting straight up. That is simply impossible. I bought the Blazing Sun, and aside from the Universal, this is the best one available. Seokbyum did not understand the grading system on the new Nangya communication talismans at all. Hearing that phrasing, though, he understood the important part, which was that it genuinely was not the highest grade. Why aside from, he said, why aside from anything, I am asking you. He stared straight at the boy. Does my dignified Seok family only deserve to use something inferior to what other people carry? Taking a thing like this out in public, are you not afraid of making a fool of yourself? Seok Ilmyung wanted to cry and had no tears available. It is not that I did not want to buy the best, he told the old ancestor. The universal ones cannot be bought at all right now. You can only place a pre-order, get in line, and then wait slowly. Rubbish, Seokbyum said, and his anger flared higher still. Then why exactly does the Yu family have one? The Yu family of all of them. Seok Ilmyung was stunned for a moment and then reacted, realizing exactly why the old ancestor had flown into a rage. He pursed his lips as cold sweat broke out across his whole body. The old ancestor is asking you, Seokjin said from the side, why the one the Yu family bought is better than yours. Because, Seok Ilmyung said, and stalled, and then got it out. Because theirs was a gift from the Nangye Merchant Guild, and not bought at all. Everyone standing there was stunned. The expression on old ancestor Seokbyum's face turned solemn. What exactly did you just say? He demanded. A gift straight from the Nanya Merchant Guild. The power of the Sok and Yu families was genuinely top tier in this sea region, and in front of the Nanya Merchant Guild both of them remained insignificant. Could it be that during the years he spent in seclusion, the Yu family had connected itself to a power like Nanya? Otherwise, what right did the Yu family have to make the Nanya Merchant Guild give them anything at all? What exactly happened here, he said. Tell me the whole thing from the beginning. Seok Il-myung had no choice and explained all of it in detail, starting from the donation to the Nanya Foundation. After listening, Seok Byum's expression flickered between light and dark, and he looked slightly more relaxed and still extremely ugly about it. He was relaxed because the situation was not as bad as he feared, since the Yu family had not actually formed a connection with Nanya. He was uncomfortable because his own junior had been thoroughly outdone by the Yu family's junior. A wrong choice had been made somewhere because they had boarded the wrong ship entirely. Stupid, short-sighted, and useless trash, Seok Byum said to him. Then he stopped looking at Seok Il-myung entirely and stared at the current clan chief instead. Is this the young generation you have cultivated during the years you have been in charge of this family? He shouted. Seok Jin lowered his head and agreed repeatedly, while cursing internally. Back then, when Seok Il-myung invested in the Bongnai Cloud Sea Merchant Guild, the boy had asked his permission first. Otherwise, how would Seok Il-myung have held the authority to mobilize millions of spirit stones? Who on earth would have thought it? Because of one momentary lapse in judgment, he now stood here being furiously criticized by the old ancestor. If the old ancestor grew unhappy enough to remove him from the position of clan chief outright, that would be the end of everything. Damn that Bongnai Cloud Sea Merchant Guild, because they have genuinely ruined me. I do not care what method you use, Seok Byum said. I want to see a best, highest grade communication talisman in the shortest time possible. If you cannot manage it, then stop being the clan chief. He left those words behind him and turned and went. Only once the old ancestor was out of sight did Seok Jin slowly straighten up and look back at everyone with a stern face. What are you all still standing there for? He said. Did you not hear what the old ancestor said? Have every single clan member get ready now. Tomorrow morning, go to the Nanya branch office immediately and queue for a pre-order. Whoever secures a purchase slot for a universal communication talisman receives 100,000 spirit stones. Every one of them said yes to that. Meanwhile, at the Yu family, Yu-in had ended the communication and was playing with that universal azure dragon with a face full of smiles. He could not put the thing down and liked it more the longer he looked at it. He had been at odds with that old fellow for an entire lifetime, and it had been a very long time since he rubbed anything in that face this satisfyingly. It was genuinely refreshing to do. Yu-sin called to the old ancestor cautiously from the side of the room. What is it now? Yu-in said, glancing over at him. This communication talisman of mine, Yu-sin began. Ah, the communication talisman is good, Yu-in said, and very good at that. I like it a great deal. The corner of Yu-sin's mouth twitched at that. Did you not just say you would never snatch a junior's things? He thought. Somewhat unwilling, he organized his words and said, with a forced smile, that the old ancestor was too kind, that it was thanks to his good teaching that the Nanya Merchant Guild gave this communication talisman to him. He put a particular weight on that last word of it. Yu-in is an old fox, and he understood the meaning perfectly, and he squinted at the man for a while before speaking. Do not worry about it, he said. How could I possibly snatch anything of yours? Yu-sin breathed out in relief inside his own chest, and agreed that of course he could not. But then, Yu-in said, changing his tone entirely. As the current clan chief, he said, you should stay low-key and steady and lead this family to prosperity. Although this item is good, it is far too extravagant and far too flashy, and it does not suit you to carry it around. I will simply keep it for you for a while. Once you step down from the position of clan chief, I will naturally return it to you. Yu-sin made a strangled sound in his throat. He was entirely unwilling and, looking at the old ancestor's unquestionable expression, did not dare produce a single syllable of refusal. He could only take one last lingering look at the communication talisman. Then he took a second last look, and then a third last look. All right, stop looking at it, Yu-in said. A dignified clan chief behaving like a child is unseemly. Now leave this room. Yes, old ancestor, Yu-sin said. At the headquarters of the Nanya Merchant Guild, in a room of enormous size, densely packed figures moved back and forth shoulder to shoulder without stopping. The sound of clothing brushing clothing and the sound of argument echoed everywhere in it. The communication talismans at the Sunyang Island branch are sold out, somebody called. They are requesting an immediate restock from headquarters. How many do they want? Another asked. They said at least 100,000, came the answer, and the more the better. 100,000 of them. Where exactly would we get that many? Give them 20,000 at the most. Chongjang Island is also sold out, somebody else called, and they are requesting a restock of 200,000. This one is even more ruthless than the last, the answer came. We do not have 200,000 of them anywhere. Restock 50,000 for the man at the most. Past the bustling area in a room fitted with a soundproofing formation, the arguing ran no quieter. Give that batch of universal communication talismans to our Southwest District first, one of them said. On what basis exactly? Another one demanded. Our Northeast District wants that batch as well. Our Southwest District holds many large islands and those cultivators have money and are willing to spend it, the first said. They have told us they will pay double the price to secure a universal communication talisman. You dare mention double to me, the second one said. Several island masters on our side are opening at 5 times the price, and 2 of them shouted 10. What on earth? Several chief managers said, stunned at that. Wait a moment, one of them said. Are these people genuinely insane? 108,000 for a communication talisman is already very expensive. Double is not enough and they are adding 10 times. They found the whole thing genuinely hard to understand. The communication talismans the guild had launched were indeed good looking, and their materials did far surpass the ordinary. After everything though, the object was only a communication talisman. For the great experts of the cultivation world, what treasures had they not already seen? Was it genuinely worth fighting like this over one? Then a silver bell rang somewhere outside the door. A chief manager pressed something on the wall. The formation at the door opened a passage. A guild deacon walked in quickly, wiped the sweat off his forehead and reported that they were out of stock. Im Pyeong-sang was stunned and frowned and asked what he had just said. Out of stock entirely, the deacon repeated. Every communication talisman stockpiled at headquarters has been sold, and restock requests are still arriving continuously from every direction. 1 million communication talismans, another chief manager said, his eyes widening. Every last one of them gone. Not a single one of them left, the deacon said. Besides that, the pre-order quantity for the universal communication talismans has already passed 100,000. The whole room fell into a dead silence. A total of only 1 million had been made this time, and of those the universal grade numbered only 20,000. It had been exactly one single day. Not only had every communication talisman sold, but the number of people who had paid a deposit and were standing in line for a universal had already gone past 100,000. Are there genuinely this many rich people in our North Sea? One chief manager could not stop himself from muttering. As men who run a merchant guild, they knew perfectly well which powerful families and major clans sit inside the North Sea, and which regions carry high consumption and which carry low. Even so, none of them had ever seen a scene this crazy. The universal was priced at 108,888, and this was a communication talisman. Do these people no longer treat spirit stones as spirit stones? Im Pyeong-sang took a deep breath and worked through it aloud. 100,000 orders may not mean 100,000 people, he said. Given the current popularity, there are definitely people who intend to hoard on a large scale and resell at a high price. In the cultivation world, the hierarchy runs extremely strict. Every time a man's strength rises a level, the power and the resources he can command multiply dozens or hundreds of times over. An ordinary cultivator might struggle a whole life to afford one universal communication talisman. But anybody genuinely willing to spend that much on one is definitely not able to afford only one. For the cultivation sects and families that have accumulated wealth across hundreds or thousands of years, spirit stones are simply a number on a page. The things money cannot buy are always the most precious. It seems we underestimated the vanity of those cultivators, somebody said. It really does have to be the young lord, said another. His foresight on this is genuinely godlike. He must have calculated this scene a long time ago, which is exactly why he dared to set a price that high. Im Pyeong-sang sighed sincerely and everyone nodded along with him. At the beginning, when they received my requirements and the run of settings that came with them, all of them privately felt a communication talisman that expensive would find very few buyers. The present situation had slapped every one of those faces. The young lord is genuinely a hidden dragon, another chief manager said. He spent the past few years biding his time, and now, with one slight move, he makes the rest of us feel inferior. Only a handful of them stood in the room at that moment. Naran Yungan was not present, and neither was I, which meant they said all of it without any intention of flattering anybody. All of it came from the bottom of their chests. This time, from the early production and design of the communication talisman through the promotion and the release and the pre-orders, very nearly every process had been planned by me alone. They had simply followed instructions and implemented them one at a time. Everybody in the guild saw the result. The goods sold as well as goods can possibly sell. And from this one run the profits of the Nanya Merchant Guild would land somewhere close to unimaginable. Everyone sang for the moment, one of them said. The warehouse is empty, so we must contact the artifact refining pavilion quickly and rush another batch. I will make the trip myself, Im Pyeong-sang said, and I will ask the young lord about subsequent matters while I am there. Sold out already, I said. I was still at the northern Dark Holy Land stabilizing my realm in Na Hyun Sung's palace when Im Pyeong-sang and Seop Jung-jung brought me the report. and I was mildly surprised by it. It seems the consumption power of the cultivation world runs stronger than I imagined, I said. I had been confident the communication talismans would not be difficult to sell, and that becoming a hit was only a question of time. The smoothness of how it actually went was somewhat unexpected. 1 million sold out in a single day is a terrifying figure, and the sheer volume of orders for the Universal made me click my tongue. The inventory is exhausted, Im Pyeong-seng asked, so should we contact the artifact refining pavilion and rush another batch? The pressure on every branch is very high, and the people arriving to place pre-orders have very nearly trampled the thresholds flat. I nodded at him and told him that we should. Later, Ting Ting, I said, come with me to see the senior sister at the artifact refining pavilion. In future, pay closer attention to the connection on that side. Yes, young lord, she said. The starlight, the bright moon, and the blazing sun can all be produced in large quantities, I added, and they must be able to meet the needs of every cultivator at any time. The universal grade does not need any of that. For now, a stable output of 10,000 a month is enough. Hearing that particular number, Im Pyeong-seng's eyelids twitched. 10,000 of them, he said, and told me that was very far from enough. What I want, I said, is for it to not be enough. Things carry value because they are rare, I told him, smiling. People always feel that a thing they had to fight for is better than a thing they simply bought. If everybody held one, it would not be worth anything at all. The starlight and the bright moon and the blazing sun function as popularization tools, and those can be supplied without limit and sold in whatever quantity people want. The more people who carry one, the better, because it makes launching a whole series of commercial plans around the communication talisman considerably more convenient later. As for the Universal, its functionality is genuinely no different from the rest of them. Its role is to hold the Nangya brand communication talisman at a very high level of popularity and attention permanently, and to do a certain amount of promotional work while it sits there. Im Pyeong-seng nodded, understanding some of it, and then raised another point. Then, young lord, he said, there are currently many forces trying to hoard our universal communication talismans and resell them at a high price. Should we take some measures against them for it? Scalpers, I said, and that is entirely normal. A luxury good without scalpers is not a luxury good. What cow was that? Seop Jung said, stunned. It means resellers, I said, and gave her a brief explanation before thinking it over. There is no need to pay them much attention, since their existence may not be a bad thing for us at all. She told me that she understood. Afterward, Im Pyeong-seng took his leave, and I took Seo Jung to the artifact refining pavilion area on Godforging Island. Along the way, a great many disciples saw us, and their eyes filled with a complicated light as they whispered to each other. The young lord of the Wang family is here again, one of them said. It was him last time, was it not? Said another. He made us produce 1 million communication talismans, and we were nearly dizzy from it. Having said that, a third put in. It was tiring and we genuinely earned a great deal. Shut up, somebody told him, because you have fallen already. Senior sister, I said, walking in with a smile and closing the door behind me. Are you busy at the moment? Ha, Yo-Yo felt a small stab of panic at the sight of me, since some unpleasant memories arrived with it. Why exactly are you here again, she said. To bring you more business, of course, I said, smiling at her. She bit her lip very slightly. Junior brother, she said, helping you last time was because we were genuinely in difficulty and needed the money, but our artifact refining pavilion is still not the same as a forging workshop outside. Do you understand what exactly I mean by that? I understand you, I said, nodding at her. You people do research, and research is also an activity that burns money. How much did you actually earn last time? How many days does that amount actually last you? She took a very deep breath. In any case, she said, we will not do this sort of thing again. Think about the whole thing again, I said. No need to consider it, she said, shaking her head. I have to be responsible for the artifact refining pavilion and for every junior brother and junior sister inside it. I cannot let any of them go astray. I need a great many of them this time, I said, starting at 10 million. And the unit price goes up 30% on the previous basis. The moment those words landed, Ha Yo-Yo went silent for a beat. Even if I were willing, she said, those junior brothers and junior sisters of mine are not. Then the door was pushed open with considerable force and a crowd of young faces swarmed into the room. Nonsense, one of them said, because we are willing, and extremely willing at that. Senior sister, hurry up and agree to the man. Ha Yo-Yo had nothing at all to say to that. Senior brother Jang, senior sister Seo, I said, please stay where you are. I have told you before. One of them said, why call us senior brother and senior sister? It is far too formal for us. Just call me little Jang instead. How could a thing like that possibly be appropriate, I said. What exactly is inappropriate about it, he said. We are only about 200 years older than you, which is no great matter. Come, brother Mock, watch your step and mind the stairs. On God-Forging Island, a group of artifact refining pavilion disciples walked me out in a loose circle, and every face in that circle was beaming with a genuine smile. Well then, I said, we will be heading off now. Please, all of you stay here. All right then, they said. Take it slow on the road, and remember to visit often, Brother Moke. The disciples waved from where they stood and watched Seo Jung and me mount the golden lion, climb into the sky and disappear out of sight. Senior Brother Jang, leading the group, stroked his beard and clicked his tongue in praise. Brother Moke is a genuinely handsome man, he said. Why did not one of us notice that before? Indeed he is, one disciple agreed. Especially when he waved his hand and said the unit price would go up 30%, and then handed everyone a labor subsidy on top of it. He was so cool about the whole thing. Senior Sister Seo took a while to process the whole thing before pursing her lips. 10 million items in one order, she said. Once this deal is done, we will be rich, will we not? Have some confidence, Senior Brother Jang said, straightening his clothes and lifting his head. We are going to be extremely rich. At that moment, Ha Yo-Yo walked out expressionless and looked at all of them with open disdain. Look at the state of all of you, she said. Bought off by a very little money. Senior Brother Jang immediately played the victim about it. Junior sister, he said, you are the Pavilion Master's personal disciple and you have never once been poor. We have been poor so long that it is frightening. The research funds I applied for 30 years ago still have not been approved. Same on my side, Senior Sister Seo said. The research I am responsible for, she said, improving the shocking thunder staff with the 5 thunders formation so our senior and junior sisters get a better experience out of it, is only halfway finished. The money provided is far too little, and those young junior sisters will not come and help, because they are too delicate to handle it. Me as well, another of them said. My fully automatic invincible windfire wheels are short of test subjects right now. Most senior brothers and junior sisters are too shy about it, and if the money is not right, they simply will not do it. So the whole thing is stuck where it stands. Stop right there, Ha Yo-Yo said, her face darkening as she looked around at her own fellow disciples. I am not interested in your research in the slightest, she said, but now that we have taken the order from the Nanya Merchant Guild, we have to do it properly. None of you may ruin the reputation of the Artifact Refining Pavilion simply to rush a schedule. Otherwise, every one of you faces the pavilion's rules. All of them said they understood. The rest of you are all dismissed, she said. Senior Sister Yu, come inside here for a moment. I think there may be some issues with your research, so let us discuss it. Senior Sister Yu made a thoroughly bewildered noise. Meanwhile, at the Bongnai Merchant Guild headquarters, 4 communication talismans sat quietly on a table. All 4 had clearly been produced by the Nongya Merchant Guild, 1 each of the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. 1 was Starlight, 1 was Bright Moon, and 2 were Blazing Sun. Let us hear it, Dang Qian said, tapping the table lightly. Guanxi was the one who spoke first. Mediocre work, he said. Beyond being better looking and carrying some flashy and useless light and shadow effects, there is nothing special about them where practicality is concerned. Enshrined Master Mo of our Ungong Merchant Guild has already examined them, Seo Yansang said, and his conclusion matches yours exactly. These simply use more advanced materials and carry a better texture, and none of that helps the actual function of a communication talisman at all. Dang Qian's tapping hands slowed and stopped, and he picked one of them up. For a thing this small, he said, the Nanya Merchant Guild dares sell it tens of thousands of spirit stones, and surprisingly it is selling very well. I heard this thing was also created by that young lord of the Wang family, Guanxi mused. I have to admit the thing, Seo Yonsang said sincerely. This young lord of the Wang family is good at producing moves nobody expects, and he cannot be underestimated. Unfortunately, Dang Qian said smiling, having a great many ideas is not everything in business. Since this thing is not difficult, if they can make it, so can we. Guanxi nodded and smiled right along with him. Currently, it is clear that the vast majority of cultivators are extremely enthusiastic about this new type of communication talisman, he said, and Nanya's output is plainly insufficient. This piece of meat is more than they can eat alone, so we can lend a hand with it. The reason theirs sell this well, Seo Yansang said, is simply that they use ranked divisions to trigger competition between cultivators and then deliberately hold output down to cause a scramble. We can make the appearance even flashier than theirs while replacing those expensive materials to save cost, and then divide ours into ranks exactly the way they did. Exactly that, Guanxi said, nodding along. It is a communication talisman. There is no need for materials that good, and certainly no need for high artifact refining skill, so that entire portion of the cost can be saved outright. Ordinary forging workshops would be entirely enough to make them. That way our profit margin runs larger than theirs by a wide distance. The group talked it over and got steadily more excited about it, feeling as though a vast world stood in front of them with countless spirit stones waving from the far side of it. Dang Qian tapped the table lightly and the 2 of them went quiet. Money must be made, he said, and do not forget our main goal. I heard the first batch of 1 million communication talismans Nangya released sold out in a single day, he said. At this rate, if they run that a few more times, they will hold a massive quantity of spirit stones and recover their origin chi. If that happens, every strike and every measure we have taken against the Nangya Merchant Guild across the past few years will have been for nothing. The smile faded slightly off Guanxi's face, and he turned more solemn. What exactly does young Master Dang mean? He said. We need to be very fast, Dang Qian said, nodding at them. Our price has to run considerably cheaper than theirs. In this world, there are always more cultivators without money than with it. And the more miserable a man is, the more he tends to hate the rich. Does Wang Mok not like building a reputation, he said. We will capture the majority of cultivators who cannot afford a high-priced communication talisman, he said, and then incite them to spread word of the Nangya talisman's high price and low specifications. Hearing that, Guanxi and Xiao Yansang looked at each other, and both felt a chill arrive somewhere in their chests. This Deng Qian carries a genuinely malicious mind inside him. Both sides had established foundations before, and in that battle, Bongne Cloud Sea could fairly be said to have lost utterly. Deng Qian held the grudge from it, and now he wanted to swing a hoe at the foundation of Nangya's reputation. If a bad man does evil his whole life and occasionally performs one good deed, people suddenly decide he is not that bad after all. If a good man does good his whole life and performs one evil deed, half a lifetime of good deeds gets written off as wasted. As long as the scheme succeeded and a stain solidified on the Nangya Merchant Guild, however many people the Foundation had saved and however many good deeds it had done, none of that would stop countless low-level cultivators from criticizing them. After all, with the Nangya communication talismans in circulation, buying a high-grade one and flexing on somebody feels wonderful, and the person being flexed upon walks away with a belly full of resentment. That is survivable if they have the money to upgrade. If they do not, that resentment has to vent somewhere else. And the thing this world lacks least is poor cultivators with no money. What of it? You say the Nangya Merchant Guild also carries affordable prices. You say they sell communication talismans at around 100 spirit stones. Who cares about any of that? Who asked them to be flexed upon? Who asked them to want something better and be unable to reach it? After a few days of fermentation, the cultivators' pursuit of the new communication talisman had not weakened at all and had turned more fervent instead. There was no helping it, because they had been zapped too often and too hard. Even a great many cultivators who prided themselves on a firm Tao heart and indifference toward external things found themselves wavering. They had watched cultivators with lower cultivation than their own walk past carrying something dazzling that pulled gasps and envious looks in every direction. What exactly is all this cultivation for? Longevity, perhaps. That is one aspect of it, and very few ever genuinely achieve it, and even living several hundred years cannot honestly be called longevity. Beyond that, very few people can cultivate steadfastly for a belief that vague and that illusory. For the vast majority of lower-level cultivators, the purpose is simple. Strengthen yourself so nobody bullies you, and then stand above the weak, accept the worship and adoration of a great many people, and be the center of attention wherever you go. That is the reality of it, and it is a tangible happiness and a tangible thrill. And now a great many people with weaker cultivation than theirs achieved a similar effect simply by buying a communication talisman. How exactly is anybody supposed to accept that? Years of arduous cultivation, and now the whole thing looks like a joke. So, after a stretch of internal struggle, more and more cultivators joined the ranks of the people chasing the new communication talisman. The Nangya branch has no stock and you need to make an appointment for one. Then simply buy from somebody else directly instead. You bought it for 188 spirit stones, so I will buy it off you for 500, and will you sell? You bought that one for over 1,000, so I will pay 10,000, and I am not shortchanging you, am I? You say that for a bit over 10,000 you could buy a blazing sun outright. My sincere apologies. That item can no longer be bought for anything over 10,000. It runs at 50 or 60,000 spirit stones minimum, and it will have been used several times before it reaches you. It is always the same old truth. When a cultivator improves by one realm, the rights and the disposable resources he gains differ like heaven and earth. A high-level cultivator produces hundreds or thousands of times the spirit stones a low-level one can. So, under this annoying and widely welcomed trend, the prices on every model and every rank of Nangya brand communication talisman began to climb. In the black market especially, prices had already soared past 10 times the listed figure, and nothing was stopping it. The most terrifying of all of them was the universal. The quantity of that item was inherently small, and control over it sat entirely with the Nangya headquarters, and it never appeared in the branches at the beginning of the sale at all. Except for the first batch who paid deposits and were confirmed for delivery, everybody who paid afterward was buying a number in a queue. 30,000 spirit stones for a universal vermilion bird reservation plate. 86,000th in line. a cultivator shouted in a certain trading market, holding his sign up. A large crowd gathered around the man very quickly. Fellow Taoist, one female cultivator said, frowning, your number is not even inside the top 50,000. Is that price not far too expensive? You call this expensive, he said. The fairy could go and ask around, he said, because the numbers had already passed 150 or 60,000, and his 80,000 and change counted as quite early. Make it cheaper for me, she said. My grandmaster has her 1000th birthday in 2 years, and I plan to buy this as a gift for her. Make it cheaper and I will take it right now. I genuinely cannot make it any cheaper, fairy, he said. It was not easy for me to get this number. I paid a 5,000 spirit stone deposit on its own, so selling cheaper would not be worth anything to me. Scenes exactly like that one were happening everywhere, because the communication talisman was simply that popular. A mere early reservation number could fetch a high price, and the earlier the ranking, the higher the price ran. Anything ranked inside the first 20,000 could sell for hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. The reason behind it was simple enough. The top 20,000 had actual stock behind them and could be delivered quickly, while everybody after that waited a month at minimum, and in some cases, several years. Cultivators hold plenty of time, and the waiting process is always difficult anyway. The thought of not getting the communication talisman you wanted made it hard to settle down and enter meditation at all. Changwol Island is a large island inside North Sea territory, governed by a soul transformation stage power, the Profound Heaven sect. The island was bustling that day, because it was the 2000th birthday of the Profound Heaven Sect's sect master Tao Lord Hyungong. A soul transformation cultivator can live 3,000 years, so a 2,000-year mark is a genuinely memorable day for a figure at that level. Powers and island masters and well-known cultivators from hundreds of thousands of miles of surrounding sea all came to offer congratulations. Above the water, streaks of immortal rainbow broke the air, dazzling and brilliant as meteors, stirring the blood of anybody watching. It looked like 10,000 immortals arriving to pay homage. Yu-in of the Yu family from Yuha Island in the Cheongun archipelago comes especially to offer birthday wishes. The announcement ran. It wished Tao Lord Hyungong eternal life and an early breakthrough out of the mortal world into immortal ascension. Yu-in handed the carefully prepared gift to the Profound Heaven sect disciple waiting outside the hall. Then a beautiful female cultivator led him into the grand hall and seated him in a relatively forward position. Because he was a long-established Nascent soul venerable, and even on an occasion like this he held a certain standing, so his seat was never going to sit far back. The entire venue broke into an uproar, and every scrap of chatter in it vanished in a single instant. In its place came gasps of wonder and the sound of a great many people pulling cold air through their teeth at once. This kind of phenomenon, somebody said. Could that be the legendary universal grade communication talisman? It is genuinely far more dazzling than the blazing sun grade, said another. That is the old ancestor of the Yu family from the Cheongun archipelago, a third put in. An Ascent soul family was actually able to get hold of a universal grade communication talisman. Maybe they simply had good luck and bought early, somebody answered. This person genuinely lacks discernment, said the next one, clicking his tongue. Tao Lord Hyungong has just finished saying he could not obtain even one universal grade communication talisman, so by taking his out now is he not slapping the Tao Lord across the face? The Yu family of Cheongun, said another, and I do not think they will last much longer. A great many people looked at Yu-in with open schadenfreude, shaking their heads and sighing over him. With the power the Profound Heaven sect holds, Tao Lord Hyungong would not need to say a single word about it, because countless cultivators would target the Yu family purely to curry favor with him. Although the Yu family stands as a top-tier power inside the Cheongun archipelago, what exactly do they amount to in front of the Profound Heaven sect? The expression on Yu-in's face turned very unsightly. That old ghost, Sok Biom, had genuinely taken the opportunity to sabotage him. The last time the two of them used their communication talismans to talk, they had discovered something about the way that things worked. When both parties hold Nanya brand communication talismans and one party initiates a call, the phenomenon on the other party's talisman activates automatically. That creates a certain interactive scene between them, such as twin dragons intertwining, or a dragon and a tiger battling, or a dragon and a phoenix resonating together. And when one party's communication talisman carries a higher rank than the others, the display shows an extremely obvious disparity between them, which stimulates the competitive desire sitting inside every cultivator watching. That feature had been built into the design of the communication talisman from the very beginning. And now Seokbiom was using exactly that point to expose Yu-in's universal grade communication talisman to every cultivator in the hall. Somewhat flustered, Yu-in brushed away the phenomenon that communication had produced and moved to put the communication talisman back into his storage magic treasure. It was already far too late in the day for that. From above him, Tao Lord Hyungong's gaze descended, silent and invisible, and seeming to carry a terrifying heavenly majesty inside it. Yu-in trembled all over, broke into a cold sweat and turned pale where he sat. "Which faction's cultivator are you?" Tao Lord Hyung-ung said slowly, his voice calm and empty of any emotion a listener could name. Yuen stood up hurriedly and bowed with every scrap of respect he had, giving his name and his family in the Chang'an archipelago and greeting the Tao Lord properly. Hearing an entirely unfamiliar name, Tao Lord Hyung-ung stayed expressionless. "It seems your opportunity is quite good," he said, "and considerably better than this seat's." Yuen trembled harder at that and his lips went white because he did not know how to explain any of it. Should he take the chance and offer the item to the Tao Lord outright? What if the Tao Lord said he was hardly the type to take what other people love, and the whole thing became more disastrous than before? But saying nothing at all was also a dead end. Just as he was racking his brains for a strategy that would let him respond, Ju Pyong's eyes suddenly focused, and the chief manager spoke up. "I wonder if I might borrow your communication talisman for a look," he said. Yuen was slightly stunned and hurriedly took the communication talisman off and presented it with both hands, saying, "Of course, of course." Ju Pyong beckoned with one hand and the talisman flew into his palm, and he examined it closely for a moment before nodding to himself. "So that is exactly how it is," he said. "Chief Manager Ju," Tao Lord Hyung-ung said, looking genuinely puzzled by it. "What exactly is it?" "This universal-grade communication talisman of the Yu family was not bought with spirit stones," Ju Pyong said, smiling. "It was gifted to them by my own merchant guild." Tao Lord Hyung-ung made a low sound of interest at that. "Has the Tao Lord heard of the foundation established by our merchant guild?" Ju Pyong asked. "Heard a little," Tao Lord Hyung-ung said, nodding. "Your merchant guild is compassionate and does not hesitate to pay a great price to save the world from its suffering, and this seat admires that greatly." When the communication talismans were released, Ju Pyong said, "The young lord specifically instructed us to set aside a batch of the universal grade. Those were to be gifted to whoever tops the karma rankings in each major region, as appreciation for the strong support our fellow Taoists have shown the charitable work of the Manhwa Foundation. And on this batch of communication talismans, every single one carries a mark. The Tao Lord should please take a look at this." Tao Lord Hyung-gung looked where Ju Pyong's finger pointed and found a special mark there. Probing it with divine sense produced a string of characters that thanked the Yu family of Chang'an for their strong support of the Foundation's charitable work, and named the talisman a special gift. He withdrew his gaze from it, looking genuinely surprised. "Being top of the karma rankings can also get you a gifted communication talisman," he said. "Indeed it can," Ju Pyong said, nodding. "Then how much must I donate to the Manhwa Foundation to obtain that top spot?" Tao Lord Hyung-ung asked. Figures at that level generally ignore worldly affairs entirely and spend their days immersed in the comprehension of the great Tao. There was no reason he would know anything about a foundation that had nothing to do with him. Ju Pyong understood all of that perfectly and explained it calmly. "Our foundation does not accept any direct donations," he said. "If the Tao Lord is inclined, you can have your sect disciples support our merchant guild's business more in their daily lives. Then simply purchase supplies in the name of the Tao Lord or of the sect. There are still over 2 months before the next ranking update, so it should be in time." "I see," Tao Lord Hyung-ung said, and then gave orders to the people beside him. "From now on," he said, "whenever my sect disciples purchase the resources they need for cultivation, all of it goes to the Nanya Merchant Guild, and the sect's name is reported uniformly." "Yes, sect master," every one of them said. Then his gaze the communication talisman sitting in Ju Pyong's hand, and a hint of open desire arrived in it. "This new communication talisman from your merchant guild is genuinely enticing," he said. "The universal grade especially, because only that one suits our status." Hearing those particular words, Yuen reacted very quickly. "If the Tao Lord likes it," he said hurriedly, "you may keep this communication talisman to play with, since this junior does not have much use for it anyway." Tao Lord Hyung-gung narrowed his eyes, slightly tempted, and still shook his head. "Since it is a treasure gifted to your Yu family by the Nanya Merchant Guild," he said, "how could my profound heaven sect take it for our own?" If he had not known the origin of that communication talisman, then so be it. Since Ju Pyong had explained the origin to his face, though, accepting the thing now would be a little like holding a hot potato in a closed fist. Put another way, by gifting the Yu family that communication talisman, the Nanya Merchant Guild had very nearly acknowledged the Yu family as a major client. No matter who tried to take the talisman off them after that, it would inevitably look like disregarding the Nanya Merchant Guild itself. To put it bluntly, a treasure gifted by the Nanya Merchant Guild might cause the Yu family to be targeted, or even lead to their destruction outright. The Nanya Merchant Guild would then lose face along with them. Cultivation is said to be a matter of transcending the mortal world. Before a man genuinely surpasses the mundane and undergoes ascension, he still has to navigate human relationships and worldly wisdom every day of his life. Cultivators who can live that many years are all shrewd individuals and would understand a thing like that with very little thought. Risking offense against the Nanya Merchant Guild over a single communication talisman was not a good deal by anybody's arithmetic. The matter at the Profound Heaven sect's birthday celebration amounted to a minor interlude, and it was also a fair microcosm of the entire North Sea cultivation world. In the following days, business at the various branches of the Nanya Merchant Guild became even more explosive than before. In the past, it had mostly been small and medium sects or families competing for the top spots on their local karma rankings. Now powers at the soul transformation stage began entering the fray, one after another. For the genuinely big figures of the cultivation world, there are certain things they might never use and absolutely must possess anyway. That runs especially true for items that showcase status and cannot be bought even with spirit stones, because only a thing like that is worthy of an identity at that height. And now they could not obtain a universal-grade communication talisman, an object a whole crowd of nascent soul and even golden core cultivators already carried. Is a situation like that acceptable to anybody? So when they learned that ranking first on the karma rankings of any major region earned a specially gifted universal-grade communication talisman, they became restless immediately and mobilized every power they could reach. In a few short days, they raised the actual value of the regional karma rankings to a level that could fairly be called alarming. On Cheonjo Island, outside the gates of the Nanya Foundation headquarters, a forest of stelae stands tall. The central stele is the tallest of them, crafted entirely from thousand-year sea-hard jade mixed with a special spirit gold, and the words immeasurable karma are cut into the front of it. Surrounding it stand dozens of comparatively smaller stone tablets, densely covered with countless characters that reflect the real-time status of the karma rankings at every Nanya branch and change moment by moment. That board is not the final confirmed ranking list. It simply lets every karma patron see clearly where their current karma sits on the various regional leaderboards, and once the 3 months are up, the final ranking becomes the confirmed list. The morning light appeared and golden sunlight scattered across the forest of steels, shimmering with an ethereal glow, dazzling like karma golden light itself. A large number of cultivators had gathered in front of the steels and were marveling at the information displayed there. It must have exceeded 1 million by now, one of them said. It exceeded 1 million on its own yesterday, another answered. These big sects are genuinely rich, said a third, because 1 million karma points means they poured in hundreds of millions of spirit stones. The disciples of powers above the soul transformation stage are mostly mighty, somebody explained, and the grade of materials they require sits far beyond anything we can reach, so the prices naturally skyrocket. Indeed it is, another one agreed. I also heard that powers like the Profound Heaven sect instructed their affiliated islands and sects to use the main sect's name when purchasing materials at the Nanya Merchant Guild. With that massive a number of cultivators all exerting effort together, said the next one, it is no wonder the karma totals on the rankings are soaring the way they are. Inside the crowd, the expressions of sect masters like Yang Jioja and Cho Yu Chang, who came from local Cheonjo Island sects, were complicated to read. Yang Jioja in particular was full of relief. It is a good thing we acted early and secured the first 3 spots on the karma rankings, he said. We were purely lucky that the young lord chose Cheonjo Island for the Foundation's headquarters, because otherwise how could a benefit like this have fallen to us? It is no exaggeration to say that holding a place among the top 3 on the Nanya Foundation's karma rankings had brought their sects unimaginable benefits across this period. Any disciple under their names, moving anywhere in the surrounding sea region, basically receives face from every other cultivator they meet. Their reputation ran far too good for anything else. Every time the Foundation rescues people out of a disaster or a calamity, their good name gets spread along with the story. Beyond that, a great many long-famous cultivators had heard of the major sect's benevolent acts, felt admiration, and traveled great distances hoping to join them. One has to remember something about those spots. The man who spent the most on them, Yang Jioja, spent only about 800,000 low-grade spirit stones. That amount was substantial for a sect of their size at the time. If it were today, it would not even reach the bottom of the list. Many sect powers with older legacies saw that they could not compete against the established soul transformation grade powers in their own regions, so they extended their reach into regions like Cheonjo Island, where the competitive pressure ran lower, because spending money here could still put them on a ranking. Cheonjo Island did hold a soul transformation grade power of its own. The Li family's old ancestor was a favored figure close to the Nanya young lord who had reportedly been granted a universal-grade communication talisman long ago. He had no reason at all to compete for anything. That removed one whole competitor from the board outright. The island immediately became the first choice for a great many soul transformation-grade powers and loose cultivators with insufficient foundation, who spent spirit stones desperately to inflate the rankings and made the competitive pressure on the list ferocious overnight. This is genuinely insane, Cho Yu Chang cursed under his breath. He had originally envied the Nine Sun sect's position at the top of the karma rankings and planned to surpass them before the next ranking change. Now there was no point in competing at all. Those soul transformation cultivators could break wind casually, and it would be worth more than the accumulated foundation of his sect across 1,000 years. Yang Jioja subconsciously grasped the universal-grade communication talisman held against his chest, and the thing felt increasingly heavy and increasingly scorching hot in his hand. He understood exactly what he was carrying there. This item might very well become the Nine Sun sect's legacy treasure from this day forward. Meanwhile, in the Chungun archipelago, Seok Ilmyong, young master of the Seok family, arrived at the Nanya branch carrying an enormous sum of money in his pouch. His gaze was determined and his fighting spirit was running high. "Move aside," he called out, and everybody move aside. His personal retainers parted the noisy crowd and opened a path through it for him. Young Master Sok, Manager Mok of the branch, said, narrowing his eyes, slightly confused about the man's intentions. "What exactly is the meaning of all this?" "The manager should please not misunderstand him," Sok Il-myung said. "I am not here to cause any trouble. I came here today simply to say one single thing." He waved a hand and slowly pulled out several storage pouches and placed them neatly on the table. Then he looked around at the crowd, waved his hand grandly, and declared with tremendous spirit that all consumption by everybody present at the Nanya branch today would be paid for by this young master. The moment those words landed, the crowd burst into an uproar. Such a good thing as that genuinely exists. Every cultivator in the place yelled that young Master Sok was generous, and rushed into the Nanya branch and began sweeping the shelves. Sok Il-myung basked in the flattery of thousands of practitioners with his eyes narrowed and his hands on his hips. He felt his life had reached perfection and remained entirely unaware of what a genuine opponent looks like. Manager Mok approached him wearing a half smile. "Young Master Sok is truly generous indeed," he said. "This old man genuinely admires you for it. It is all petty cash," Sok Il-myung said, waving a hand carelessly. "I have no other redeeming qualities except that I cannot stand the suffering of the world and want to contribute more to charity." Manager Mok's smile deepened, and he nodded along in agreement, saying that in this day and age, ambitious people like young Master Sok were genuinely rare. Seok Il-myung puffed his chest out and held his posture rigid. "This is only the very beginning of it," he said. "I intend to become number 1 on the Cheongan Archipelago Karma rankings." Hearing that, the expression on Manager Mok's face turned strange. "The Karma rankings, of all things," he said. "That is exactly right," Seok Il-myung said confidently. "I remember that last time, Yu Yakin spent over 2 million spirit stones and topped the karma rankings. Today I have brought a full 5 million with me." Manager Mok, what exactly is that expression for? "If you do not believe me, count them out yourself." No, Manager Mok said, waving his hands quickly and looking slightly awkward about it. "It is simply that the recent karma rankings run rather differently from before. Why do you not go and take another look at them?" "What is different?" Seok Il-myung said, frowning. And he still turned toward the karma rankings posted by the entrance, and his eyes widened instantly. The first place spot had long since changed hands and been replaced by a name he did not recognize in the slightest. First rank went to Juseon at 400,000 karma. Second rank went to Im Woo at 399,000. Third rank went to Yuchon at 398,000. In an instant, Seok Il-myung felt dizzy and faint, as though the sky above him had collapsed. He stumbled, his face turning pale, and took several steps backward, and only Manager Mok's supporting arm kept him off the ground. "Young Master Sok," Manager Mok said, "are you all right?" "No," Seok Il-myung said, pointing at the long string of unfamiliar names on the rankings, and very nearly roaring the words out. "Who on earth are these people? Where exactly did any of them come from?" "Young Master Sok, watch your words," Manager Mok said, making a silencing gesture. "These people carry quite the backgrounds behind them. What rotten backgrounds are those?" Seok Il-myung cursed like a shrew. Could they possibly be from some soul transformation sect somewhere? Manager Mok made a small sound of confirmation at that. Seok Il-myung had nothing at all to say to that. "Impossible," he said, shaking his head hard. "I never said they were forces from the Cheongan archipelago," Manager Mok said, shrugging. Seok Il-myung made another strangled noise at that. He racked his brain and genuinely could not understand why soul transformation grade forces from other regions would suddenly appear on the karma rankings of the Cheongan archipelago. Hundreds of thousands of karma points meant tens of millions of spirit stones. Could it be that this Nanya branch held something the other branches did not? The only thing he knew for certain was that he was finished. He was completely and utterly finished. Before leaving home, he had repeatedly guaranteed to the family head that he would not mess this up and would definitely bring the top spot on the karma rankings back to report. Now, even if he threw in all 5 million, the top spot was gone and it would be difficult to get onto the list at all. "No, not the money," he said. "I have to get the money back somehow." He was like a madman about it, because if he recovered the money, his punishment might not be as severe, and if the money was gone, he was genuinely finished. Thinking that, he lunged toward the storage pouches sitting on the table. A massive force caught him by the back of his collar and pinned him firmly in place. Manager Mok's gaze turned genuinely dangerous all at once. "Young Master Sok," he said, "are you trying to rob us?" Seok Ilmyong swallowed hard and his face went pale, because he had clearly not expected that the shopkeeper, who stayed polite to everybody who walked in, and even to lowly chi refining cultivators, was in fact a cultivator at the Golden Core stage. He shook his head and got the words out in a trembling voice. "I regret the whole thing," he said. "I do not want to treat everybody here anymore. I simply want to take the money back." Manager Mok chuckled at him twice. "Our shop's rule is that once the payment is made, the deal is done," he said. "Unless there is a quality issue, there are no refunds and no exchanges. Furthermore," he said, he gestured with his chin toward the many shelves inside the branch that stood more than half empty. "Does young Master Sok imagine it is still in time to regret it now?" Seok Ilmyong ground his teeth at the answer. "Then what about the rest of the money?" he said. "The part of it that has not been spent yet. It should be fine for me to take that portion back." This time Manager Mok did not make things difficult for him. After having the clerk count it out clearly, he returned the remaining spirit stones into Sok Ilmyong's hands. Less than a third of the original sum was left. At the same time, the remaining customers in the shop heard that Sok Ilmyong regretted his generosity and immediately started cursing him for it. "You are trying to suck it back in after letting it out," somebody said. "If you cannot afford it, do not offer," said another. "So why act like a wealthy young master?" "How embarrassing," said a third, and spat on the floor. Listening to that run of harsh words, Seok Ilmyong wanted to cry and had no tears available. He had spent the money, bought nothing at all with it, and ended up covered in filth in front of a crowd. Once he returned to the clan, a severe punishment was inevitable. At that moment, his heart filled with an intense and useless regret. "I regret the whole thing so much," he thought. "I was wrong about it, and I was genuinely wrong. From the very beginning, I should never have thought about taking a shortcut and investing in the Bonne Cloud Sea Foundation. If I had not invested in the Bonne Cloud Sea Foundation, I would have had the money to compete with Yu Yakan for the top spot on the Nangya Karma rankings. If I had taken the top spot on the Nangya Karma rankings, that universal grade communication talisman would be mine. If the universal grade communication talisman were mine, I would not have fallen to this state today. One wrong move simply leads to every move after being wrong. Damn that Bonne Cloud Sea Foundation to the depths. This is the latest situation on the Karma rankings from every location," Seo Jongjong said. Inside the Foundation headquarters, I had returned only the previous day and was reclining on an exquisite red lacquered carved spiritual wood chair. The maidservant Jaha knelt in front of me and gently massaged my legs, her fine figure outlined by a slim-fitting dress that showed off a shapely silhouette. I took the latest report from Seo Jongjong, glanced through it and nodded with satisfaction, and told her she had done well. "By the way," I added after a pause, "how is the recruitment of practitioners familiar with sea charts and the environment along the North Sea coast coming along?" "The announcement has been sent out," Seo Jongjong said, nodding. "When those practitioners saw it was a recruitment notice from our Nangya Merchant Guild, they responded in droves, and we are currently screening them. Be very careful during the selection," I said. "Try to filter out anybody with an improper heart nature, because I have great use for these people later. Once the first round of screening is complete, show me the list." "Yes, young lord," she said. Just then, Li Wanhua appeared and reported respectfully that somebody was outside requesting an audience. "Who is it?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "She calls herself a disciple of the Northern Dark Holy Land," he said, "and gives the name Ha Yo-Yo." "Then please bring her in quickly," I said. A moment later, Ha Yo-Yo was led inside, and it was the first time I had seen her properly dressed. She wore a long purple dress with her hair coiled behind her head like a waterfall, and her snow-white slender legs were faintly visible through the hem of the skirt. A light purple silk bandeau failed entirely to hide the curves underneath it, and added a more charming allure instead. The most eye-catching thing about her was the array of accessories she wore. Around her neck hung a necklace inlaid with a crimson crystal, resting over her fair chest, and several silver bracelets and bangles and bells were tied around her wrists. Her slender waist, narrow enough to be held in one hand, was bound by a jade-white belt with another bell tied to it. The whole arrangement complemented her fair skin and appeared to glow beautifully. She made a tinkling sound as she walked, and the sound carried a long way in front of her. Nobody needed to look closely to know those were all extremely high-quality magic treasures, the sort that stay rare even inside a holy land. Disciples of the artifact refining pavilion might not be able to produce many spirit stones. Where treasures are concerned, though, who among them cannot casually pull 8 or 10 items off their own person? These are the several special and limited edition communication talismans you wanted, she said, acting with obvious haste and handing over a brocade box. I have brought all of them to you. Opening it, I found 5 uniquely styled communication talismans inside, completely different from anything on the market. I glanced across them, entirely satisfied, and closed the box again. Senior Sister Ha, please sit down here, I said. You have come at exactly the right time, because I have something to discuss with you. What exactly is it? She said, puzzled. I want to update a piece of software in all of the communication talismans, I said. Software of some kind. Hearing an unfamiliar term, Ha Yo-Yo frowned at me and asked what that was. I pondered for a moment and organized the words first. It is an integration of data and functions, I said. Remember that communication interface I had you make for me before? Now I need to pack considerably more content into it. Similar to a type of formation, Ha Yo-Yo said, trying to understand it. The formation is the core mechanism of its internal operation, I said, nodding. On the surface, though, it needs a simpler and more direct and more convenient operating interface. Ha Yo-Yo understood a little of that much. Then what is the name of this formation, or this software, she said. I thought about it for a long moment. The Nangya Mall, I said. The Nangya Mall, she repeated. Correct on that, I said. The entire software divides roughly into 3 separate modules. First, the shopping module, where all the cultivation resources needed for daily life, where the common entertainment resources are listed inside the software. A guest holding a Nanya communication talisman can open it and make purchases. Second, the merchant module, where every merchant can use the function to list the signature products of their own shop. Third, the delivery module, where after the guest finishes shopping and a merchant finishes preparing the goods, a dedicated person collects the goods and delivers them to the guest's address, completing a door-to-door service. After listening to the explanation, Ha Yo-Yo pondered a moment and said it sounded similar to a courier shop. I was slightly stunned by that and then nodded at her. Exactly that, I said. In this era, deliveries did exist, and they basically existed only in some of the larger eateries and restaurants. If a guest did not want to go out to eat, they would send a servant or an attendant to the shop to place an order and specify a delivery time. The shop would arrange for somebody to bring it to the door. But courier shops carry far too many limitations, I said. The regulations are messy, the service range is small, and the distance is short. What I want to build is a large-scale shopping platform capable of spanning at least the entire North Sea, or something larger than that, covering other areas of the northern region as well. Hearing that, both Ha Yo-Yo's eyes and Seokjeongjeong's lit up, and Seokjeongjeong's especially. She is intelligent and has been tempered in the business world since childhood, so she guessed my intention very quickly. Imagine the situation for a moment. In the future, a cultivator practicing on a lonely island suddenly lacks a certain medicinal pill and does not want to interrupt his cultivation to go and buy it. He could take out his communication talisman, place the order on it, and then somebody would deliver the thing to him across thousands of miles. How convenient would a thing like that be? It is no exaggeration to call an arrangement like that epic-making. Once those guests experience service that convenient, it becomes very difficult to go back to the old days of laboriously traveling to shops and selecting things by hand. If the young lord's plan genuinely succeeded, which merchant guild in this world could be a match for the Nongya merchant guild afterward? The prospects were beautiful, and the implementation would very likely be quite difficult, because the manpower and material resources required for it ran to an astronomical figure. Beyond that, the communication talismans have already been sold, Seokjeongjeong asked in confusion. Even if a function like that is genuinely created, how can you ensure that the guests who already bought a communication talisman get the same experience out of it? Do not worry about that, Ha Yo-Yo said, pursing her lips, her eyes filling with excitement. When young Lord Wang asked me to customize the communication talismans before, he specifically had me leave a mark on every single one of them. These marks store the information of each communication talisman and are interconnected with the heavenly heart stone that serves as the hub. I was wondering at the time why making a communication talisman had to be that troublesome, and it turns out you did all of it for this step. As long as the heavenly heartstone is used as a medium to engrave the completed formation onto it, every communication talisman in existence changes simultaneously. That is exactly the idea, I said, nodding in agreement. Brilliant, she said. Simply and completely brilliant. This is a completely new way of thinking, a concept nobody had seen before. Her breathing had gone rapid, and her chest was heaving with it, and she could not wait to get up and head out the door. Wait for my news on it, she said. Seokjeongjeong watched the figure leave in a rush and asked, puzzled, what had happened to Miss Ha? Perhaps she saw a brand new path, I said, smiling. The system design of the Nangya Mall on its own was not enough to make Ha Yo-Yo that excited. What genuinely made her lose control of her emotions was her belated realization of how I had conceived of the Heavenly Heartstone and what I intended to use it for. That stone was the foundation of an information network, and it was also the core of every piece of business layout I planned afterward. Because I held far too many ideas that had to be built on the premise of a mature information network first. That is my single greatest advantage over the traditional business models of this world, and it is enough to form what amounts to a strike from a higher dimension. And that whole system was something a cultivator like Ha Yo-Yo, who had received a traditional artifact refining education in the cultivation world since childhood, had never once come into contact with. It was as though a brand new door had opened in front of her. A crack of it showing, a glimpse through could take in the major thousand worlds. My own understanding of information technology is honestly only average, and it does not matter in the slightest. This is the cultivation world after all, and there is no requirement to copy the systems of my previous life exactly. As long as the final result I want gets achieved, any road that reaches it will do. Then again, with the comprehension ability these prodigies of the cultivation world carry, people capable of comprehending something as complex as the Great Tao are hardly going to struggle with anything else. Beyond both the productivity and the technical level of the cultivation world genuinely run far stronger than the mortal society of my previous life. It is simply that nobody here has ever thought in those directions before. Now I only need to give a general direction and let them play the whole thing out for themselves. The sky gradually darkened and a cool breeze brushed against my face. Fallen leaves filled the courtyard and swirled around with the wind, gold and red intertwining under the setting sun, and the sight of it was magnificent. Watching that scene, I suddenly had a feeling arrive, and I flickered into the center of the courtyard and struck a pose. A dragon's roar rang out across the whole courtyard. My entire body ran brilliant with a hard spiritual light. As my figure shifted and moved, a massive dragon shadow followed every movement, its aura majestic enough to look as though it were creating heaven and earth. A layer of dragon-scale armor covered my body and my fists were wrapped in dragon claw phantoms. Every move ran like a genuine dragon, and with every roar heaven and earth trembled, as if the void realm itself might shatter. That was the Azure Heaven Dragon Transformation art. This is an ancient divine ability that Im Yun obtained from an ancient dragon clan ruin. It strengthens the physical body and elevates close-quarters combat technique to an extreme, and practiced to the peak it leaves a man effectively without rivals. Im Yun had originally intended to use a single drop of Flood Dragon Essence blood to push himself into the basic level of the cultivation technique. I had Li Wanhua send him 2 pure blood dragon pearls instead, which instantly made his cultivation of the technique like a tiger with wings, and surged its power several levels higher. And at that moment I was not satisfied with performing only the one divine ability. As my eyes opened and closed, my left eye glowed with green light and my right eye with golden light, dazzling and brilliant together, and 2 massive spiritual forms appeared behind me. On the left stood a vast azure dragon, and on the right a spread-winged skyrock, both of them divine beasts famous throughout the near-ancient era. Now their combined power was gathered in a single person. Left hand carried the Azure Heaven Dragon Transformation, and right hand the Skyrock Dragon Grappling. Both of those divine abilities are supreme close-quarters combat abilities. Under my simultaneous execution, they did not feel the slightest bit out of place against each other, and blended together perfectly instead, as though they had merged into one thing. That was my Tao Comprehension Immortal Heart doing its work, because I intended to merge the 2 divine abilities into a single form and produce a combat technique more terrifying than either. In the courtyard, the sounds of dragon roars and rock cries echoed without stopping, as though ancient divine beasts were fighting inside the walls. The commotion it produced was enough to shatter a man's heart and gall. After a long time, I slowly stopped and felt somewhat emotional about the whole thing. The grades of both divine abilities are extraordinary, I said. And fortunately, the Tao Comprehension Immortal Heart is powerful enough, because otherwise there would have been no possibility of a successful fusion at all. I named the fused divine ability the Skyrock Dragon Transforming Hand, and the boost it gave to my combat power far exceeded anything either one had provided on its own. With my current combat power, an ordinary Nascent Soul Cultivator is no longer a match for a single move of mine. The unprecedented 12th grade phenomenon Golden Core, combined with an unparalleled and abundant foundation, is enough to let me look down on anybody of the same rank. Even though I currently stand only at the first revolution of the Golden Core, my combat power passed the limits of the Golden Core stage a long time ago. While the Nanya Merchant Guild's communication talisman stayed incredibly popular and brought in a massive run of Spirit Stone profits, the Foundation was not sitting idle either. I have always kept my core goal in front of me. Making money was only ever for the sake of better investment. With money in hand, the Ascendance assemblies on the various islands continued in full swing. The second batch of over 1,000 islands I had planned out was already covered during those days, and the number of cultivators I had invested in exploded by more than 100 million. That large influx of cultivators pushed my cultivation progress, which had slowed noticeably after the breakthrough into the Golden Core, back to its former extreme speed, and honestly to something faster than that. A few days later, I woke up and found that I had successfully broken through into the second revolution Golden Core. That is much more like it, I thought to myself. Cultivation should be non-stop, and I am simply too diligent for my own good. The sun was shining brightly, and the sea sat calm and sparkling underneath it. With winter approaching, warm days of that sort had become rare. I took the brocade box Ha Yo-Yo had sent 2 days earlier, mounted the Golden Lion, and arrived at the northern Dark Holy Land to find my mother, Na Hyun-sang. "Mok, why are you here?" she said, pleasantly surprised at the sight of me. "I brought something over for you today," I said. I opened the brocade box and took out a communication talisman shaped like a sword, with a long slender blade that looked like a cold icicle in the light. "Is that not my cold whale?" she said, somewhat surprised. "It was modeled after your cold whale sword," I told her. "Open it up and see whether you like the thing." Following my guidance, she injected a wisp of mana into the thing. It glowed instantly with brilliant colors, and bursts of dawnlight gathered behind her head and transformed into a lunar halo. Behind her, specks of silver light fell like an eternal snowfall, and wisps of divine dawn light fell obliquely across it like a meteor shower, repeating endlessly and streaking over the snowy curtain. My mother stood in front of that snow with the meteor shower passing behind her and the lunar halo hanging above. Her already majestic and holy face turned colder and more noble, like a goddess out of the 9 heavens, and looking at her made it impossible for anybody to hold a thought of offense. I gave my mother a thumbs up and praised her sincerely, telling her she was simply a goddess out of the heavens. "You complete brat," she said, scolding me playfully. "You have even learned how to tease your own mother." She raised a hand and condensed a water mirror anyway, and looking at her own reflection in it, her eyebrows arched with open delight. Women always love beauty in the end of it. That special effect was something I had painstakingly prepared for my mother alone, and it genuinely touched her heart. "I heard you have been busy with some type of communication talisman lately," she said, "and that it is very popular. Is this particular one the thing you mean?" She stays busy with a great many affairs, and she had still heard about her son's activities. "How could that be?" I said, shaking my head without any hesitation at all. "Theirs are all ordinary models, so how can they compare with yours? This is the Sword Immortal Communication Talisman, which I customized specially for you, and it is one of a kind in this world." My mother, the Sword Immortal, was beaming with joy at her precious son's words. Then I handed her the remaining customized communication talismans and asked her to help deliver them to my grandparents and to my father. After that, I left directly for the God-Forging Island. Inside the artifact refining pavilion, Ha Yo-Yo was leaning over her desk and carefully writing and drawing. The software design plan I had proposed had shocked her deeply, as though a door into a new world had opened in front of her. She had not eaten or slept properly for days while putting almost all of her energy into it. She had already produced several plans and felt that none of them were suitable, because she wanted to construct a brand new formation structure capable of supporting the perfect operation of the thing I called software. It was a completely unfamiliar field of study to her, and precisely because of that it seemed a greater challenge, and Ha Yo-Yo loves a challenge more than anything else. Then the silver bell hanging inside her own door rang. Ha Yo-Yo did not even look up from her work. "I am busy right now," she said. "If it is nothing particularly important, come back in a few days." The silver bell went and rang twice more. Her willow-like brows furrowed slightly, and filled with annoyance she released a spiritual seal that opened the formation on the door. "Who exactly is it out there?" she said. "It is only me, junior sister Ha," came the answer. A young man in a cyan cloak walked in with his face full of smiles. "Yuk-jin," she said, and her frown deepened at him. "What exactly are you doing here?" Yuk-jin is the eldest true disciple of the neighboring alchemy pavilion. He possesses extraordinary talent, and having received the full legacy of Elder Heavenly Pill, he is almost certainly the next candidate for Master of the Alchemy Pavilion. In the eyes of outsiders, the two of them are a perfect match where talent and appearance and status and potential are concerned. A match made in heaven. Even Yuk-jin himself thought so about it. Only Ha Yo-Yo was devoted entirely to artifact refining and held absolutely no interest in romance of any description, and faced with his various advances, she only ever felt irritated. That ran especially true at this one particular moment. Seeing her displeasure, Yuk-jin quickly raised his arms and showed off 2 tall food boxes. "I have brought you something good to eat," he said. No need for that, she said succinctly, lowering her head again. Take the whole thing away, and thank you. Do not be like that, junior sister Ha, he said. I asked senior brother Juan from the Spirit Chef Pavilion to make this 100-beast soup specially for you. Eating it can replenish essence and transform chi and strengthen your foundation. He placed the food box on the table entirely of his own accord. Look at the state of you now, he said. You definitely have not rested well these past few days because you look haggard. Ha Yo-Yo continued writing with her head down, frowning occasionally in thought. Yukjin pursed his lips at all of that. He was already thoroughly used to being ignored by her, and he was not angry about it and enjoyed it instead, because it made him feel that junior sister Ha was different from every other woman in the world. So he simply sat down at her table. Seeing that, both of Ha Yo-Yo's eyebrows shot straight up. Why exactly have you not left yet? She said. Yukjin thought about it for a moment. Junior sister Ha, he said. I heard that your artifact refining pavilion has been working for that Wang Mok lately. What exactly is it to you? She said. We entered the sect together and grew up together, he said, and your business is naturally my business as well. He spoke every word of it very righteously. Is your artifact refining pavilion short on money again? He said. If you are short on money, you can borrow from us. Why must you degrade yourself and act as a lackey for that playboy? The styles of the alchemy pavilion and the artifact refining pavilion run completely different. Across the entire northern region, over 60 parts in 100 of the medicinal pills circulating on the market come out of the alchemy pavilion. Even a single pill, as long as it carries the alchemy pavilion's mark, sees its price rise by 30 parts in 100 out of thin air. It could fairly be called the major moneymaker of the northern Dark Holy Land, and it stands in stark contrast against the impoverished artifact refining pavilion. Listening to those blunt words, the corners of Ha Yo-Yo's mouth twitched. I suggest that you watch your mouth, she said. Through their interactions across that period, she was basically certain that my previous playboy persona had been a tactic of hiding capability and biding time. Yukjin was calling me a playboy one moment and calling her a lackey the next. She rather feared his own face would be swollen from his own slaps once he learned the truth. To Yukjin, though, it sounded as if Ha Yo-Yo were worried that the Saint Lord might hear him speaking ill of me and punish him for it. He immediately puffed out his chest and wore the expression of a man ready to die for a cause. I have an entirely clear conscience, he said. Even if it is the Saint Lord herself, on what grounds could she possibly punish me? Listening to that tough-sounding voice, Ha Yo-Yo shook her head and said nothing more. Yukjin went and spoke again anyway. I heard that beast, surnamed Wang, asked you to help make communication talismans, he said. Is that not clearly an attempt to humiliate you outright? How about we do this instead? Whatever he is paying you, I will simply pay double, and I do not need you to do anything for it. So pay us back whenever you are able. I simply cannot stand that man surnamed Wang, a playboy who imagines he can trample on people because he holds some stinking money. Ha Yo-Yo's expression turned strange at that. Double the amount, she said. Yukjin nodded and said all of it confidently. Since my master is currently in seclusion, he said, I am in charge of the entire alchemy pavilion, and I have the final say on an amount of money like that. In his own view, how much could a batch of simple communication talismans possibly cost? Even if the quantity ran large, 20 or 30 million spirit stones would surely be the ceiling on it. Just then a figure in red appeared outside the door and asked whether Miss Ha was here. I am here, Ha Yo-Yo answered him. Seop Jungjang walked in, placed a spatial ring on the table, and spoke with a beaming smile. By order of the young lord, she said, I have brought the deposit for this batch of communication talismans. It comes to a total of 1 billion spirit stones. Miss Ha, would you like to verify the amount yourself? How much was that? Yukjin said. A whole billion. Before Ha Yo-Yo could speak, he had bolted upright, looking exactly like a man who had seen a ghost, and his voice jumped several octaves getting the words out. And who exactly is this? Seop Jungjang said, frowning. Do not mind him at all, Ha Yo-Yo said. Let us simply continue our conversation. She took the ring and swept her divine sense through the inside of it, and after a moment she slowly opened her eyes with a hint of excitement sitting in them. That is entirely correct, she said. In that case, I will take my leave, Seop Jungjang said. Will you not stay a while longer, Miss Seop? Ha Yo-Yo said. No, she said, because the young lord is waiting for me to report back. I will walk you out, Ha Yo-Yo said, and Seop Jungjang told her there was no need. A moment later, Ha Yo-Yo returned to the room and found Yukjin standing stupidly in place with a blank stare on his face, and she could not help frowning at the sight. You still have not left here yet, she said. Yukjin swallowed very hard. That young lord she just mentioned, he said. Which one of them was that? Ha Yo-Yo simply rolled her eyes at him. In the entire northern sea, she said, who else would dare call themselves young lord inside our northern dark holy land? Yukjin's whole face filled with disbelief. He gave you a full billion spirit stones, he said. That is only the deposit on it, Ha Yo-Yo added, and the final payment will run considerably higher. Yuk-jin was speechless for a long moment before he choked something out. He definitely holds bad intentions here, he said. Yo-Yo, he must have improper designs on you, and I am certain of it. Otherwise, it is a batch of communication talismans, so how could the things possibly be worth that much? Believe me on this, because a man knows a man best. That wretch knows you are short on money right now, so he is taking advantage of your situation, and you must not fall for it. Ha Yo-Yo stared at him for a while and sighed. Yuk-jin, she said, I think you hold a misunderstanding about Wang Mok. He is not the kind of person you think he is. The moment those words landed, Yuk-jin clutched at his own heart with his face full of agony. There was pain in it, and far too much pain. Ha Yo-Yo, he said, you are finished because you have fallen straight into his trap. This is a common tactic used by playboys exactly like him, and you need to wake up. She said nothing at all in answer to that. Even if for the sake of argument he is not as bad as I say, Yuk-jin went on, the man cannot cultivate. He is a mere mortal and a complete waste of one. He and the rest of us are simply from different worlds, and in the cultivation world strength is the only foundation there is. He is simply not worthy of you at all. Hearing that, Ha Yo-Yo's expression, which had stayed relatively calm through the whole conversation, changed drastically, because a memory that was not very pleasant surfaced in an instant. Wang Mok cannot cultivate, and Wang Mok is a complete waste. That is genuinely the least funny joke she had heard in her entire life. Ha Yo-Yo felt a sharp pain arrive in her chest, because the restriction my mother had planted inside her divine soul seemed to be stirring. Get out of here, she spat at him. Idiot. Yuk-jin made a thoroughly bewildered noise at her. The list of the first batch of couriers has been compiled, Seop-jung said later, so the young lord should please take a look. I took the jade slip holding the list from her, and sank my divine sense into it. Inside I could see not only their basic information but visual records of them, the cultivation techniques each one specialized in, and a run of their major past deeds. After reviewing every part of it I nodded, grouped them by region and prepared to begin training, I said. Yes, young lord, she answered me. As the first batch of couriers for the Nangya Mall, professional conduct was going to be a vital component of the whole thing. Because these people would shape the world's first impression of shopping through a talisman, the law of the jungle has prevailed in the cultivation world for a very long time. When a weaker person places an order and gets assigned a powerful cultivator several realms above him as the courier's attitude becomes extremely important. They were not required to be subservient to a customer, and at the absolute minimum they could not be arrogant with one. And they certainly could not leave the other party feeling a sense of crisis or unease. Once emotions like that arrive, that cultivator very likely gives up on ordering through a talisman altogether. 1 or 2 of those might be a small matter, but what about 10 of them, or 8, or hundreds or thousands of them? A thing like that has to be nipped in the bud right at the start. The wages I offered those couriers were by no means low, and they ran several times higher than the men would earn as loose cultivators or idling in some sect somewhere. That money was not being paid for nothing. If they wanted to earn it, they had to learn properly how a service industry actually works. According to your instructions, Seop-jung reported, we have secretly signed cooperation and confidentiality contracts with a great many shops and restaurants and other businesses across the various islands of the Northern Sea. The whole process went very smoothly indeed. Many of those shops did not even listen clearly to what we wanted them to do, because the moment they heard they could collaborate with our merchant guild, they agreed immediately. I smiled at that and said nothing at all. A rigid hierarchy carries its advantages, and it is quite convenient at times. Although the Nanya Merchant Guild holds a complete range of supplies touching every aspect of daily life, it still ran lacking in certain areas. The cultivation world is extremely inclusive and all sorts of industries flourish inside it. Combined with the powerful means practitioners hold, that allows industries which would never have suited a shopping platform in my previous life to thrive here instead. Fresh spirit fruits, for instance, or spiritual delicacies out of restaurants, or island-specific products like spirit fish and spirit flowers, or even spirit pet businesses, and puppets in the trade in songstresses. Some of those might count as violations in another world. Here every one of them is permitted. Although the Nongya Merchant Guild covers a wide field, every profession has its own specialty, as the saying goes. Take the songstresses as an example, because the guild has sold half-human and half-demon women and slaves through auctions before. In the end, they were never as popular as the women out of the Myoyun Pavilion. So it was genuinely necessary to have those merchants cooperate with the Nongya Merchant Guild and join the trading platform. I had a premonition about the whole thing. Once the Nongya Mall went live, the other major merchant guilds would surely see the immense business opportunity sitting there and would not want to miss out on it. So seizing the market first was beneficial and entirely harmless. Just then, a series of system prompts sounded in my head. Congratulations, host. Your investment target, Im Yun, has refined the Taehyo Demon Suppressing Flame, His Imperial Flame Saint physique has improved, and his cultivation has increased. Congratulations. You have received a return on cultivation effects from Imyon. Complete mastery of the Taihyo Demon Suppressing Flame. Congratulations. You have received a return on cultivation effects from Imyon, Imperial Flame Saint physique at minor achievement. Congratulations. Your cultivation speed has increased. Flame mastery rises by 1000. Fire-type divine ability amplification rises by 1000. Mana rises by 10, and Solar Emperor scripture experience rises by 100. Feeling the vast power suddenly surging through my whole body, the influx of a great many exquisite profound truths appearing out of thin air inside my mind, I could not help falling silent for a while. The Taihyo Demon Suppressing Flame ranks 25th on the Spirit Fire rankings. It is renowned for its violent power, and possesses a natural restraining effect against sinister and demonic entities. And beyond that, it provides a massive boost to a cultivator's combat strength. The rarity of the flame runs even greater than that of the Sea Spirit Flame. How long had it been since Im Yon comprehended the Azure Heaven Dragon transformation art? And he had already encountered another heaven-sent opportunity on that scale. He genuinely lives up to being a child of luck, and the whole thing is simply unbelievable. I suddenly felt somewhat fortunate that I had maxed out Im Yon's investment progress in one go a few days earlier, because otherwise I would not have been able to obtain a rebate that generous today. My control over fire attributes and flame divine abilities improved drastically. My combat strength then skyrocketed once more on top of it. My cultivation, which had only recently achieved a breakthrough, saw another significant increase on top of that. At the same time, I obtained the same Imperial Flame Saint physique that Im Yon carries. Because I already possessed the power of the Taihyo Demon Suppressing Flame that directly catalyzed the Imperial Flame Saint physique to minor achievement. In other words, from this point forward I could search out and devour the exotic flames of this world to strengthen myself exactly the way Im Yon does. Of course, a task that time-consuming and that arduous is better left to the hardworking Im Yon, since it ends up in the same place anyway. I dismissed Siup Jungjung and sent her off to her own business, and then my heart stirred as I thought of little Nana. I'd opened the panel and searched for the notification messages concerning her. Congratulations, host. Little Nana, whom you invested in, has refined deep-sea profound gold. Her foundation has improved and her potential has increased along with it. You have received a cultivation effect rebate from Little Nana. Aptitude rises by 10. Congratulations, host. Little Nana has refined Dragon Blood Ginseng and her Blood Chi aptitude has improved. You have received a rebate. Blood Chi rises by 10, and Body Cultivator talent rises by 10. Congratulations, host. Little Nana has refined a mysterious yellow plum, and her Chi-Si has improved. You have received a rebate. Mana rises by 10, and Spell Cultivator talent rises by 10. Congratulations, host. Little Nana has successfully cultivated the Heaven Usurping Creation art, and her aptitude has risen to high grade. Your spiritual Chi affinity has increased, your cultivation speed has increased, and your spiritual Chi control has increased. Little Nana is different from Im Yun because she is a child of luck being raised entirely by me, which means she rarely brings me any massive surprises. That does not mean the rebates she provides run any smaller. On the contrary, I provide her with an almost unlimited supply of heaven and earth treasures so she can cultivate the Heaven Usurping Creation art. She devours and refines those treasures constantly to improve her aptitude and her cultivation together. The last time I saw her, her spiritual root aptitude was still low grade. In that short a span it had already climbed to high grade. Presumably, given another stretch of time, she will be able to reach a peak grade spiritual root. The future looks genuinely promising on that side. Several more days passed and the second batch of communication talismans produced by the Artifact Refining Pavilion was completed, totaling 10 million units. I arrived in person to inspect the quality of them. Good, I said, nodding repeatedly and full of praise for it. Genuinely good work. I knew I was not wrong about all of you. Ha Yo-Yo had a proud look on her face at that. When my Artifact Refining Pavilion does something, she said, you can rest assured about it. I took the spatial ring filled with communication talismans, looked around at the surrounding disciples of the Artifact Refining Pavilion, and spoke loudly. Senior brothers and senior sisters, I said, all of you have worked hard these past few days. Tonight at the Spirit Chef Pavilion it is my treat, so order whatever you want. The young lord is so generous, somebody shouted, and in an instant cheers echoed all the way up through the clouds. During the banquet, cups were exchanged amid a scene of laughter and open joy. Various spirit fish and spirit beast meats carrying spiritual chi had been cooked by the many chefs of the Spirit Chef Pavilion. Their skill was excellent enough that the dishes tasted like something out of the immortal realm, their flavor fresh to an extreme. Eating them provides great benefits to any cultivator besides. Ha Yo-Yo could not resist drinking a few extra cups of spirit wine. Her pretty face turned rosy with it and her eyes went watery, which added a touch of charming allure she did not normally carry. "Senior Sister Yo-Yo," I said, taking the initiative and raising my cup with a smile. "A toast to you. You have worked very hard across these days." She raised her own cup and clinked it against mine, and her words carried a unique sense of freedom as she waved a hand. "You pay the money and I do the work," she said. "It is not really hard work at all, honestly. Actually, I should be thanking you, because without these 2 big orders of yours, I am afraid a great many people in our pavilion would not have been able to hold on." I thought about that for a moment before answering her. "Actually," I said, "while it is a good thing for the Artifact Refining Pavilion to focus on pursuing higher achievements in artifact refining, there is no need to stick to the rules quite that strictly. At the very least, leave yourselves a path toward being self-sufficient and supporting your own research funds." Ha-Yo-Yo fell slightly silent and did not answer that. I knew she was conflicted, because choosing between ideals and reality is never a simple matter for anybody. "I have a suggestion for you," I said. "What exactly is it?" she said. "The Merchant Guild's business is growing larger and larger," I said. "And in the future there will be a great many more concepts that need the help of experienced artifact refiners." Hearing that, her gaze toward me gained a distinct hint of danger. "You are not thinking of turning the entire artifact refining pavilion into the forging workshop for your Nanya Merchant Guild, are you?" "Is a thing like that possible?" I said. "Of course it is not," she said, sobering up instantly and standing bolt upright, her startlingly full chest very nearly pressing straight into my face. My lips twitched slightly at that and I waved a hand to signal her to sit down again. "It is only a joke," I said, "so do not get quite that excited about it." Ha-Yo-Yo stared at me suspiciously, thought about it, and sat back down. "What I actually wanted to say," I told her, "is that your artifact refining pavilion can send out some elite artifact refiners to provide unified training for the artifact refiners inside our merchant guild. They would serve as long-term technical consultants and lend a hand whenever we run into difficulty. There is no need for any of you to teach secret artifact refining methods or exclusive techniques. Simply ensure their skills can open a significant gap between them and the forging workshops outside. In exchange," I said, "we can pay a generous fee as consulting and technical guidance, an amount that will certainly satisfy you. That way most of your artifact refining pavilion can still focus on research, while a few refiners who are temporarily free can come out and earn money. Would that arrangement not be the best of both worlds?" My voice was gentle, like a warm breeze off the sea, and it reached every ear in the hall clearly. The noisy banquet went quiet without meaning to, because almost everybody present was considering the feasibility of that proposal. I did not disturb a single one of them. I patted Ha-Yo-Yo on the shoulder, left the table and went outside the main hall to catch the breeze and wait quietly. As the Nanya Merchant Guild reaches its later stages, it will certainly need factories of its own. A great many of my subsequent ideas require a group of artifact refiners with sufficiently exquisite skill sitting underneath them as a foundation. I had genuinely never thought about absorbing the artifact refining pavilion wholesale for my own use. Holy Lands recruit disciples on an elite system after all. There were disciples in the artifact refining pavilion to begin with, perhaps only 2,000 or 3,000 of them. Attempting to take on the increasingly massive commercial production requirements of the future would be an almost impossible task for that number. Meanwhile, the original artifact refiners and blacksmiths inside the Nanya Merchant Guild counted as elite in the outside world and could not open a gap between themselves and the other merchant guilds. That was exactly why I had thought of this method instead. A long time later, Ha-Yo-Yo finished discussing the matter with all of the disciples of the artifact refining pavilion and walked out wearing a solemn expression. "We have considered the whole thing," she said. I turned around and looked back at her calmly. "We accept your terms," she said. "A pleasure doing business with you," I said, the corners of my mouth curling up as I slowly extended a hand. Ha-Yo-Yo hesitated slightly before extending her own long soft hand to shake mine, and said that it was a pleasure doing business with me as well. That same night, the batch of communication talismans was delivered to the Nanya Merchant Guild headquarters. "They are here," somebody shouted. "The communication talismans are here. The stock has finally arrived here," said another. "It is about time," said a third, "because if they had not come, those people would have torn our Nanya Merchant Guild apart with their hands." Every department in the entire Merchant Guild began operating frantically, allocating goods and shipping them and settling orders, and all of them were kept busy and happy about it. Over the next few days, the entire North Sea was swept once again by a massive wave of hype around the communication talismans. 10 million of the things flowed into the market. While the quantity was not small and temporarily relieved the urgent need, for a North Sea holding that vast a number of cultivators, it still amounted to a drop in the bucket. Instead of settling anything, it worked like a stone stirring up 1,000 waves. Even more people joined the pre-order ranks, desperate to obtain a Nanya-branded communication talisman of their own. It was precisely at that moment that the Bongne and Sahai and Ungong Great Merchant Guilds suddenly made a high-profile announcement that they were about to release their own new models of communication talisman. Based on the information we have gathered so far, Seop Jongjong reported with a grave expression. The communication talismans about to be released by the three great merchant guilds come in 4 styles. They are the Phoenix and the Kirin and the Kunpeng and the Candle Dragon. Each style carries 4 ranks: Starshine and Vast Moon and Vast Sun and Galaxy. Ha Yo-Yo was present as well, and her brows furrowed at that. "Is this not a complete copy of ours?" she said. "They did not even change the names of them very much." "Be more confident about it," I said, and dropped the question mark. I sat at the tea table and unhurriedly picked up a pot of hot tea and poured it over a teapot shaped like a golden toad. I watched the steaming water drip down the ceramic surface with my gaze entirely calm. "Our communication talismans are selling that well," I said, "so how could they not be jealous of it? Beyond that, the production difficulty on these communication talismans is not high, and with the resources the 3 great merchant guilds hold, imitating them is easy." Furthermore, Seo Jongjong said, frowning slightly, "the 3 great merchant guilds have priced every type of communication talisman lower than ours. The lowest rank, Starshine, they sell at only 168 low-grade spirit stones. The Vast Moon grade they sell at 1,688. The Vast Sun grade goes at 16,888. And the most expensive, the Galaxy grade, sits at 168,888. Moreover, judging by appearance alone, their communication talismans look almost identical to ours." "Only a little cheaper then," I said, raising an eyebrow. "A little bit cheaper is still cheaper," she said, hesitating over it. Having spent many years struggling through the business world, she understood the vast majority of consumers very well. The Nangya brand communication talisman currently prides itself on being cool. Now the 3 great merchant guilds had developed an equally cool communication talisman and were selling it cheaper than we did, with no quantity limits attached at all. With the market nowhere near saturated yet, there was no need to think about it, because the business would definitely not be bad for them. "It is fine," I said calmly, "so let the wind blow for a while." A few days later, after extensive promotion, the new communication talismans from the 3 great merchant guilds released simultaneously across every region of the Northern Territory. The market for communication talismans had long since been heated up by the Nangya Merchant Guild, and cultivators were no longer strangers to the new type. Because the number the Nangya Merchant Guild released each time was never very large, a wide gap sat open in the market. Coupled with prices cheaper than ours, the moment those went on sale, they were snatched up in a frenzy. "Brother O," one cultivator called out to his friend, "look at this." "A communication talisman," his friend said, and asked whether they were not out of stock everywhere. "Where exactly did you buy that one?" "This one is not from the Nanyi Merchant Guild," he said. "It came from the Bongne Merchant Guild instead." "The Bongne Merchant Guild is also making new communication talismans now," the friend said. "Yes," he answered him. "Look at the appearance of it, and the feel of it. It is not the slightest bit worse than that Vast Sun grade of yours, is it? Guess how many spirit stones I spent on it?" "How much?" the friend said. 16,888 low-grade spirit stones," he said. "Only 2,000 spirit stones cheaper than mine," the friend said. "What exactly are you saying to me?" he answered. 2,000 spirit stones are still spirit stones, are they not? Besides, there is no difference between the 2 types of communication talisman, so why would I spend that wasted money?" He said it triumphantly and looked at his friend while he did. "What is wasted about it?" the friend said, looking at him with genuine confusion. "Since ancient times, cheap goods have never once been good goods. Do you genuinely not know that principle?" "It is only a communication talisman," the first man said. "The function is simply the function, so how much worse can the thing possibly be?" "Where the specific difference lies, I do not know for now," the friend said, shaking his head calmly. "But I believe in the character of the young lord of the Wang family. Since he sells the communication talisman at that price, it means the thing must be worth it. Whereas those 3 great merchant guilds, Brother Jew, and do not forget the ugly things they have done in the past. Be careful of seeking a small gain and suffering a large loss for it." After saying that, he patted the cultivator surnamed Jew on the shoulder and walked calmly away. The cultivator surnamed Jew stood there a long while with his face twitching, and then he spat, unconvinced. "How can the thing be that mysterious?" he said. "It is a communication talisman. So can the difference genuinely be that big?" At a certain market, a group of cultivators who had obtained the new communication talismans from the 3 great merchant guilds were feeling thoroughly triumphant about it. "This time I genuinely profited from it," one of them said. "The Vast Moon grade Kirin communication talisman, benchmarked against the Nanya Merchant Guild's Vast Moon grade, comes a full 200 spirit stones cheaper." "Exactly," said another, "and I do not see any difference in it, and it even looks better than theirs." "If I had known," said a third, "I would have held back. I lost money buying the Nanya Merchant Guild version. How very interesting, said somebody standing behind them. Just then, a middle-aged scholar walked out shaking his head, holding a Nanya brand Azure Dragon communication talisman, and looked at the group of them indifferently. Anybody with eyes can see, he said, that the materials used in the three great merchant guilds' communication talismans sit worlds apart from the Nanya merchant guilds. The Nanya merchant guilds' communication talismans, he said, even the Starlight grade ones use deep-sea profound gold as the main material. As for the three great merchant guilds, they use extremely poor quality cloud essence stone, and the price difference between those two runs more than 100 times over. There is no need to speak of the higher ranks, he went on. The three great merchant guilds merely replaced the cloud essence stone with a high-grade version and applied some lacquer made from purple cloud wood. The Nanya merchant guild uses the extremely precious 9 refined dark steel and star sand, which are treasures fit to serve as main materials for refining top-tier spiritual artifacts. And that is without touching the universal grade. How do any of you have the nerve to say there is no difference? Hearing that, a female cultivator who supported the Sahei Merchant Guild snorted in open dissatisfaction. So what of it? She said. I only bought a communication talisman and not a magic treasure, so why exactly do I need materials that good? The others all echoed her almost immediately. As long as a communication talisman can communicate, one said, that is enough. It is not a magic treasure, so why do we need materials that good? Exactly, said another, because who would use a communication talisman to smash somebody's head in? The scholar's whole face filled with pity at that. If you were deceived, he said, it would be understandable. If your heart is blind, though, you are completely hopeless. The crowd went angry at once and demanded to know what he had just said. Facing the pressure of several people at once, the scholar remained entirely motionless and spoke indifferently. The Nanya Merchant Guild's communication talismans use top-tier materials, he said. Although the things are used for communication, buying them at that price, even if only for the materials inside them, I think it is worth doing. Whereas the three great merchant guilds' communication talismans are nothing but cloud essence stone with some paint on it, objects that cost 100 spirit stones at the absolute most. They dare to sell them for thousands or tens of thousands. Hearing that, the faces of the crowd turned pale and then green, and they wanted to retort and did not know where to begin. Greedy for cheap goods and buying defective products, he said, and then refusing to admit it and insisting you hold wisdom eyes. Your heart nature is foolish and genuinely unbearable. The scholar shook his head, and then his voice went suddenly cold as he told them to get out. At that moment, his aura released like a storm and frightened the group of cultivators opposite him, badly enough to wet themselves. He was very clearly a great Golden Core Realm immortal master. Let us go, they said, and the whole crowd turned ashen and fled in a hurry. The surroundings stayed quiet for a moment, and then endless applause rang out across the market. Good on him, somebody shouted. Well said indeed, called another. Senior is righteous, said a third, and we admire you for it. A large number of cultivators gathered around with their eyes full of admiration, because the things those few had been saying were genuinely unpleasant. If the rest had not wanted to avoid trouble, they would have stood up and beaten the lot of them. Similar situations were happening constantly all over the Northern Territory. It has to be said that the cheaper communication talismans of the three great merchant guilds were genuinely sought after by a great many low-level cultivators. Because these days, it is not easy for anybody to earn spirit stones. That made the three great merchant guilds, whose reputation had very nearly hit rock bottom across the North Sea region, show some signs of revival. That was all it did for them, though. Any cultivator who reaches a certain realm of cultivation carries a firm Tao heart and his own set of standards for looking at a problem. Is rarely influenced by outsiders, because without that it becomes difficult to cultivate at all. With their discernment, they could see the essential difference between the two types of communication talisman at a single glance. They understood clearly that buying from the three great merchant guilds meant being a genuine fool. Moreover, anybody able to spend thousands or tens of thousands of spirit stones on a communication talisman would naturally not care about spending several times that to buy the more worthy Nanya version instead. Consequently, the Starshine and Vast Moon ranks of the three great merchant guilds' communication talismans did sell very well. The Vast Sun and Galaxy ranks were almost unsellable, and they came nowhere near the grand occasion of being chased by tens of thousands with hundreds of thousands of pre-orders behind them. At the Bongnai Merchant Guild headquarters, Guanxi sighed over it. The Nanya Merchant Guild holds a very deep foundation, he said. Our communication talismans can currently only compete with them at the low end. It is all Seo Yansong said. The North Sea cake is enormous, and if we can swallow more than half of the low-end market, we will have taken root here. Moreover, our costs run far lower than the Nanya Merchant Guilds, and our profits far exceed theirs. She was quite emotional about it as she said it. Some time ago, under my successive moves, the three great merchant guilds' business in the North Sea very nearly sank to the bottom with no place left to stand. Now they had finally caught their breath and even made a fortune out of it. Suppose the Nanya Merchant Guild had been allowed to develop smoothly the whole way. Presumably, it would not have been long before the three great merchant guilds were driven out of the North Sea region entirely. That is the truth of it, Deng Xian said, nodding. Although we have not shaken the foundation of the Nanya Merchant Guild, we have finally pried open a crack in it. The market share of the three great merchant guilds' communication talismans in the low-end market increased rapidly after that. Even though the price difference between the lowest grade on both sides was not large, only 20 spirit stones, it was still cheaper, and the genuine core point sat somewhere else entirely. The Nanya Merchant Guild's communication talismans were all produced by the Northern Dark Holy Land's Artifact Refining Pavilion, where the craftsmanship runs top tier and the output runs low. At that particular moment, we were entirely out of stock. On the side of the three great merchant guilds, the requirements for craftsmanship were almost non-existent, and they recruited ordinary forging workshops and artifact refiners on a large scale to work for them. As long as the thing looked similar, it was fine, and they offered an unlimited supply of it. They timed it perfectly for that period of market vacancy. For a time, everywhere across the North Sea, cultivators holding communication talismans from the three great merchant guilds seemed to outnumber the ones holding Nanya talismans. That gave the holders of the knockoffs an illusion that they already stood on par with holders of Nanya communication talismans, or even a level above them. Because of that particular viewpoint, constant conflicts and fights broke out between low-level practitioners on both sides, which set the onlookers buzzing with discussion. It looked as though a genuine dispute were about to break open. What surprised the three great merchant guilds and every practitioner watching was that the Nanya Merchant Guild, sitting clearly at the center of the storm, showed no reaction at all across those days. We allowed the situation to ferment and showed a firm aura of remaining unmoved, no matter how the winds and clouds surged around us. Comfortable, I thought to myself. Inside the warm spiritual spring, I closed my eyes and spread my arms and leaned back casually. Several scantily clad handmaidens stood in the water around me, their thin clothing leaving their beautiful and alluring curves faintly visible under the surface. They caught hold of me and gently wiped my body down. Feeling the soft warmth within reach, I could not help letting out a low groan of pure enjoyment. Ever since I started investing and preparing for the Ascendance Assembly, I had practically moved to Cheonjo Island, and had not enjoyed life on Longevity Island for some time. Right now, though, I happen to have some free time on my hands. As per your instructions, Siop Jongjong said, I bought several communication talismans from the three great merchant guilds and sent them to the Artifact Refining Pavilion for Miss Ha to dismantle and inspect. These here are the results of it. She stole a glance at the muscle lines across my back, her face turning slightly red, and lowered her head quickly. I took the jade slip she handed over and began checking through it. It stated clearly the performance gaps between the two types of communication talisman, and after a few glances I lost interest entirely because the performance and the quality were even worse than I had imagined. They do not realize the importance of a communication talisman at all, I said. With a lack of attention to quality control that's severe, they are in for a rough time. At a certain immortal cave, two cultivators were having a small gathering. Yuk Song was holding his newly purchased Vast Moon-grade Candle Dragon communication talisman and could not put the thing down. So beautiful, he kept saying, and so very pretty. Beside him, his friend Rim Gyol could not help speaking up. Brother Yuk, he said, you have been holding that communication talisman for half the day now. Why do you not put it down and have a drink? Hearing that, Yuk Song reluctantly placed the communication talisman on the table. Looking over the dishes on the table, he suddenly remembered something. Drinking with only the two of us is a little boring, he said. Why do we not call some fellow practitioners over to join us? That works well enough too, Rim Gyol said, hesitating slightly. Yuk Song quickly picked the communication talisman up off the table again. I will contact all of them right now, he said. Brother Rim, please wait a moment for me. Seeing that, Rim Gyol's face twitched slightly because he knew the man was still in the honeymoon phase and simply wanted to show the thing off. Hello there, fellow Taoist. So? Yuk Song said. Ah, yes, it is me here. You mentioned the light and the shadow. Yes, exactly. I bought it from the Bongnai Merchant Guild. It is a new model of communication talisman, Vast Moon grade. It cost me nearly 2,000 spirit stones outright. Fellow Taoist Wang, he said next, it has been a long time, why not come to my immortal cave for a gathering tonight? Fellow Taoist Wang, he said after that, how did you know I changed to a new communication talisman? It is not that expensive, honestly, just under 2,000 spirit stones. As practitioners, we should be treating ourselves better after all. Yuk Song contacted more than 10 cultivators in succession, and only stopped once he could not think of anybody else to call, and he clearly still wanted more. Brother Yuk, Rim Gyol said suddenly, staring at the communication talisman in alarm. Is your communication talisman getting a bit hot? Practitioners all have very sharp senses. Even without touching the thing, he could clearly feel waves of heat coming off it. Hot, Yuksong said, and asked where exactly the thing was hot. He denied it flatly and said that this was simply his own passion. I am happy today and my blood is surging, so it runs a little warm. That is an entirely normal thing to happen. Rimgil was skeptical about that and did not know what to say. Then Yuksong went and suddenly slapped his own thigh. Right, he said. I have not called Manager Lee from the Dongsan Tower yet. I will go and contact the man as well. Brother Yuk, Rimgil said, raising an eyebrow. You and Manager Lee have only met once. Is it appropriate to invite the man to an occasion like this? As practitioners, Yuksong said solemnly, how can we be constrained by worldly convention? We should be acting according to our own nature. Although Manager Lee and I have only met the once, we hit it off immediately. Better than lifelong friends. Hello there, Manager Lee, he said into the talisman, and asked how the man had been lately. What was that and who exactly am I? I am Yuksong. We met 2 years ago, so did you genuinely forget? A person of high status truly does have a short memory, and it is fine. Come and have a drink here and you will remember. You are far too polite, so come along now. Rimgil's eyelids twitched as he listened, and he felt incredibly embarrassed on the man's behalf. Manager Lee clearly did not want to come to that drinking session at all. Yuksong acted as though he would not end the call unless the other party agreed, and he was incredibly thick-skinned and shamelessly persistent about it. Manager Lee, being a businessman, was not going to be too blunt with him. Finally, after more than half an hour of pestering, the man eventually agreed to come for a couple of drinks. Yuksong put the communication talisman down with satisfaction, took a sip of wine and felt thoroughly refreshed. This Manager Lee is simply shy, he said, because it took that long for him to agree. Brother Rim, why exactly are you not saying anything? He turned his head and found Rimgil staring at his communication talisman with a hint of alarm in his eyes. Brother Yuk, Rimgil said, is your communication talisman smoking? Yuksong looked down at the thing. Sure enough, wisps of white smoke were drifting up out of the communication talisman. Could it be that this is also a type of phenomenon? Yuksong said in pleasant surprise. This is genuinely interesting. Rimgil swallowed at the sight of it. I do not think that looks like a phenomenon, he said. Brother Yuk, how about we put the thing further away from us? Yuksong gave him a thoroughly disdainful smile. Brother Rim, oh Brother Rim, he said, why are you so cowardly about everything? This is a communication talisman I spent nearly 2,000 spirit stones on. I have only used it for a day, so could it possibly explode? The corner of Rimgil's mouth twitched. That is very hard to say, he said. It would not be the first time those 3 great merchant guilds did something like this. Brother Rim, Yuksong said, frowning. I know you bought a communication talisman from the Nangya Merchant Guild. There is no need to slander the 3 great merchant guilds like Bongne and Ungong the way you are doing. Seeing that Rimgil still looked distrustful, Yuksong shook his head and picked the communication talisman up again. Watch this very closely, he said. Even if I use it to contact 100 more people, nothing at all will happen. As he spoke, he formed a hand seal and injected a wisp of spiritual power into the thing. The communication talisman lit up once more in his hand. At the same time, Rimgil's eyes widened, because the white smoke was becoming denser and billowing out, and gathering above the immortal cave like a dark cloud. And the runes lighting up across the surface of the communication talisman had turned extremely violent and unstable. Brother Yuk, he said, you have to stop. At that moment, Yuksong also felt that something was wrong. He was slightly panicked and still forced himself to stay calm about it. Rest assured, he said, nothing is going to happen here. Is it not simply a little bit too much smoke? Before he could finish the sentence, the communication talisman in his hand turned into a blinding red light, and then came a heavy detonation. A large number of the runes shattered all at once. His body was flung across the room like a torn piece of cloth, hit the wall, and he passed out completely. Rimgil had nothing at all to say to that. On a nameless desert island, several rays of rainbow light streaked across the low sky. A group of young disciples from the Great Origin sect, led by their senior brother Jang Song, had come out to exterminate a few evil cultivators. In a valley bottom ringed by dangerous peaks, the group stopped. Senior brother, said second senior brother Zhang Wei with a grave expression. The aura of those evil cultivators disappears somewhere near here. He was looking at the tracking talisman in his hand, which was circling aimlessly like a headless fly. Split up and search the area, Zhang Song said, frowning. They are injured and cannot have run very far. The group scattered to take action, and the surroundings grew increasingly quiet, with only the rustle of their own footsteps across the snow. Then somebody shouted a warning that it was a trap. The others all looked in the direction of that voice. A pitch-black war lance descended out of the sky surrounded by black mist. Bursts of wailing came out of that mist along with a spine-chilling cold aura, and the lance drove straight toward the disciple who had issued the warning. Just as that disciple was about to be killed on the spot, Jang Song reacted quickly. He slapped his storage pouch and a circular magic treasure shield flew out of it, and he bit the tip of his tongue and sprayed essence blood across the shield. The shield's light surged and streams of red runes swirled through the air and circled outward, protecting that disciple at an astonishing speed. With a roar, the pitch-black war lance was sent flying. The shield trembled for a moment and its light dimmed significantly and it remained intact. The young disciple underneath it kept his life, and he was gasping for air with a pale face, his expression full of the relief of a man who has survived a disaster. Jang Song's expression stayed extremely grave anyway. From every direction around them, at some unknown moment, pale white ghost banners had risen. They were inscribed with runes drawn in the blood of unknown creatures and gave off an extremely yin and evil aura. The banners swayed and grew instantly in the wind until they blotted out the sky and the sun. Dense black mist came gathering in from all sides. Inside it, the sounds of wailing and shrill screeching and screaming ran incessant, enough to make a man's heart restless and very nearly make him vomit blood. Vaguely, the faces of the old and the young and men and women could be seen floating around inside it. The 10,000-soul heavenly evil formation, Jang Song said. His expression turned uglier still as he said it. That is an extremely famous killing formation of the evil path, requiring the heart blood of 10,000 old men and old women and young boys and young girls, each as a catalyst. It also requires taking their lives at the moment their resentment runs deepest, and then performing soul refining to turn them into ghosts. Only then can the formation be set up at all. That formation is extremely powerful and extremely sinister. They were all in very serious trouble. "You have some knowledge," came a voice from outside the Great Formation. "This formation has only just been completed, and it is perfect to use your lives and your souls as its nourishment." Several strangely dressed men and women were looking at the people trapped inside the formation with cold smiles, entirely confident of victory. "Senior brother," one of the disciples said. "What do we do now?" "Second junior brother, fourth junior sister," Jang Song said decisively. "The three of us will form the three-star formation and hold them off temporarily. The rest of you protect little junior sister and immediately use a communication talisman to contact the sect elder and the master." The male and female cultivators he pointed to nodded heavily and stepped out holding their magic treasures. They stood in the positions of the three talents with their chi faintly connecting into one and beginning to surge, and they resisted the evil formation. That evil formation was extremely dangerous, with Yin Sha power constantly surging out of the black mist and attacking from every angle at once, making it impossible to guard against properly. Although the three of them counted among the best disciples of the sect, they were still young and their cultivation still ran shallow, which made resisting it quite strenuous. As for the other disciples, they scrambled in a panic and took out their communication talismans, wanting to contact the sect. They soon discovered that the visions drifting out of the Phoenix and Kirin communication talismans in their hands were forced directly back the moment they flew into the air. They crashed around inside the formation like headless flies and simply could not fly out of it. "This formation can block a communication talisman," one of them said. Jang Song's heart sank at that, and he filled with extreme regret. They had chased those evil cultivators the whole way, and had held the upper hand from the beginning. He had never thought that at the final step he would be careless enough to fall into an ambush like this one. He did not care in the slightest about his own death. These young junior brothers and junior sisters would be implicated by him and lose their lives at that age. Little junior sister especially, who is the apple of the sect master's eye, and if she perished here, his sin would be unforgivable. "Keep trying it," he said, "and do not stop for anything." His eyes turned red, and the magical power in his body poured out as though it were worthless. He controlled his magic treasure and constantly beat back the attacking Yin Sha, the spiritual light blazing around him, which made him appear increasingly tragic. The whole place blazed with light and terrifying sound waves surged out of it without stopping. The other disciples gritted their teeth and tried again and again, hoping to send the message out. Every moment they delayed made the crisis 1 point heavier. No matter what they did, the information sent by those communication talismans stayed tightly blocked by the formation and could not penetrate it at all. Finally, one of them cracked. A large number of runes dissipated out of it, and the thing exploded outright. "My hand is gone," one of the disciples screamed. "How could a thing like this happen?" said another. "What kind of trash communication talisman is this?" said a third. "Because it is a vast moon grade that costs nearly 2,000 spirit stones, and it is this bad." "What a waste of my spirit stones," said the next one, "and useless at the critical moment." At that moment, the beautiful young girl protected in the middle of the crowd bit her pale lips. "How about I try it myself?" she said. Everybody looked over at her subconsciously and saw little junior sister take a bright moon-grade vermilion bird communication talisman out of her bosom. "A Nanya brand communication talisman," somebody said, and another said it was worth a try. The group did not hold very much hope for it. According to the promotion of the three great merchant guilds, their vast moon-grade communication talismans were benchmarked against the Nanya brand's bright moon-grade. For things at the same level, how big could the gap possibly be? At a time like that, though, as long as a glimmer of hope existed, they had to try it. Under the gaze of everybody present, little junior sister took a deep breath, input a wisp of spiritual power with a solemn expression, found her father in the communication list, the sect master of the Great Origin sect. The next moment, the communication talisman gave off a scorching red light and a charming and stunningly beautiful vermilion bird fluttered up out of it. Its tail trailed crimson clouds as it circled into the sky, and then shot straight out toward the outside of the formation. In an instant, the formation that had intercepted every one of the three great merchant guilds' communication talismans seemed to have no effect at all. The vermilion bird broke directly through it and vanished into the nine heavens. At that same moment, a sharp cry rang out. The vermilion bird communication talisman in little junior sister's hand trembled slightly, and an image appeared in front of all of them. Every one of them was stunned where they stood. The girl called out to her father through the light. One of the others called out to the sect master, and somebody behind him swore aloud that it had actually worked. Dark clouds gathered and strong winds howled, and the world went pitch black. The rain intensified until bucket-sized drops were pelting down, and the eaves along the street turned dark green after being washed by it, with fine rain pouring off them like a beaded curtain. The smooth blue stone slabs underfoot went soaked through. Cultivators would naturally not slip on account of that. Their footsteps ran very hurried anyway, and every face was extremely dark, exactly like the eaves along the street above them. "Where are the people from the Bongne Merchant Guild?" somebody shouted. "Come out here, profiteers," called another, "selling us shoddy goods like this, so refund our money." A group of them clamored and blocked the entrance of a Bongne branch, their faces filled with anger, their fists clenched tight, and the veins standing out. In the middle of the crowd, a figure lay on a stretcher with an extremely poor complexion and very weak breathing, and one look was enough to tell that the man had suffered serious injuries. The shouting grew louder. The branch clerk saw the scene and hurried inside to call the manager out. "What are all of you clamoring about?" said Manager Dong of that branch, sleepy and full of anger. "What is the noise?" Business at his shop had been exploding across those days. His superiors had rewarded him with a beautiful maid, and he had been working hard all night, so it was exactly the hour he needed rest. Being dragged out of his comfort naturally left him without a good expression on his face. "The communication talisman you sold exploded and injured somebody," Rim Gyul said loudly, leading the group. "You must give us an explanation today." "Exploded and injured somebody," Manager Dong said. He was stunned, and then he noticed the stretcher in the crowd and his brows furrowed slightly. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he said. "How could a communication talisman possibly explode?" "We should be the ones asking you that," Rim Gyel sneered. "Why would a perfectly fine communication talisman explode?" As he spoke, he opened his palm, revealing a lump of charred metal wrapped in a few pieces of cloth. Certain details still made it possible to judge that the thing had originally been a vast moon-grade communication talisman sold by the Bongne Merchant Guild. Manager Dong took it and examined it carefully, and his heart skipped a beat. He cursed internally that the group of artifact refiners the headquarters had found were genuinely unreliable. Because how could a communication talisman explode, and were they not deliberately harming the men doing business at the bottom of the guild? Thoughts were thoughts, though. He definitely could not admit it now, because otherwise the trouble would be endless. He took a deep breath and spoke expressionlessly. "How can you prove that this injured somebody?" he said. "Based on a damaged communication talisman alone. Do you have an image recording bead capturing the scene at the time?" Rim Gyul felt that was entirely unreasonable. "The incident happened suddenly," he said. "Who could have prepared an image recording bead for such a thing in advance?" "In that case," Manager Dong said, putting on an air of superiority, "there's nothing at all we can do." "What exactly do you mean?" Rim Gyul demanded. "You do not intend to take responsibility." Manager Dong stood on the steps and looked down at all of them and asked, very righteously, what he should admit to without evidence. "Of course," he added after a pause, "we at the Bongnai Merchant Guild do not wish to see such things happen to our customers. These 500 spirit stones can be considered a token of our sincerity." Looking at that condescending posture, and then at the spirit stones the man had produced, Rim Gyul and the other cultivators found the whole thing extremely absurd. They were angry enough to laugh at it. "A vast moon-grade communication talisman," one of them said, "and you sell it for 1688 spirit stones. Fellow Taoist Yuke bought it less than a day ago, and it exploded, and now he is seriously injured. What exactly do you mean by compensating with 500 spirit stones? Are you trying to dismiss a beggar?" "This customer had better watch his words," Manager Dong said, waving a hand in warning. "Whether the communication talisman actually exploded remains to be investigated. We are acting purely out of kindness to express sincerity, and we are not paying compensation. But if you spread rumors and damage my guild's reputation, that becomes a serious matter." Rim Giol started to answer and got nowhere. All right, everybody, it is time to disperse, Manager Dong said. Our guild still needs to do business. What kind of behavior is it to block our door like this? Then he turned around and went inside, ignoring entirely the eyes glaring at his back. The clerk beside him was a little frightened. He asked the manager whether it was genuinely all right to do that. Should we not pacify them a little more? Manager Dong's mind was full of the moving figure of the beauty waiting in his room, and he waved a hand. No need to pay any attention to them, he said. They are a group of ants. If they dare cause trouble again, ask the expert stationed in the building to take action and suppress them directly. In Manager Dong's view, the explosion of a communication talisman amounted to an accidental event. The money had been given, and the man was not dead. Their Bondé merchant guild was huge and powerful, so would a handful of low-level cultivators dare offend them completely?